And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Attention to roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern Time, and of course, the Finest Unfiltered Monday morning. Hope everyone had a good weekend. If you're in New York City right now, or Long Island, or New Jersey, I know you're getting dumped on right now with snow. Be safe out there. If you're in your 60s or even your late 50s and you haven't been working out, be careful out there shoveling. You know, shoveling's no joke. So even if you're in your 40s, shoveling's a whole different animal. If you're not, if your heart's not used to that type of pounding, just be careful. Take care of yourself. Find some young kid out there. Give him a couple of bucks. It's definitely worth it. I wouldn't go from sitting on the couch to shoveling. And even if you are working out, it's a different animal. Picking up heavy snow. If you are, take it slow. Be careful out there. Good topic for you today. Of course, the NYPD is always a target. And this time again from Alvin Bragg. So we have cops being accused of covering up a DWI. So they're being charged with official misconduct. It seems policy has now become a crime for an NYPD cop that's out there right now. If things couldn't get any worse, they have. Welcome to New York City, the place of chaos. So good morning, John. Good morning, Marlon. Let's rock. Let's do it. Again, who's out there in the snow? Be safe out there and take your time if you have to get to work. All right. Things have to slow down. So take care of yourselves out there. Make sure you dress warm and make sure you dress in layers. That's the worst when you're out there shoveling and you start sweating. So dress in layers and take those layers off. Be safe out there. Be careful. John, good morning.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. You know, I'm getting all the notifications. I feel bad. I feel terrible about you guys having a shovel, but Eric's 100% right, especially when you're older. I stopped drinking coffee prior to shoveling, like probably when I was like 35. I just read something that said, you probably shouldn't, as you get up there, you probably shouldn't start your day with coffee and then go out and shovel. Like, go work out first, do your shoveling, then go have your coffee. Eat breakfast, then have your coffee. And 35, I was still really, really good shape. I definitely dangerous out there. If you could hire people, do it. I know it's kind of expensive to to have them on standby, but if you could get somebody to do it. And I just recommend, just do the bare minimum. Shovel a path, make it look good, make sure you throw your salt down, do your stairs, make sure no one's going to fall. And that's it. I wouldn't go out there, spend the whole day out there going crazy. It's still coming down. So, everybody really suggests to wait until it all stops falling, right? Because that's another issue in New York City. But I honestly, it angers me. It really does. It angers me because one, being in Florida now, I worry about all the elderly people that I have there. And I think it's ridiculous. You're paying billions of dollars a year to have able-bodied males who entered this country illegally, and they get every service for free, and they're going to sleep in today while you guys are shoveling out, getting ready to go to work, or coming home from work and shoveling out when it's icy. And I think they should be put to work. I truly do. I think that they should be put to work. I don't think they should be compensated for it. I think they're already being compensated for it. So that's one thing that really, it just bothers me every time it snows. I'm like, what are we doing with all these men that are here? Instead of having them run out in the middle of the night and shift through mailboxes and jack people on the streets of New York, earn your keep, buddy. So pick up a shovel. Here you go. We don't need 2 forms of ID for you. We know who you are because you're staying in our shelter system. And if you want to continue to stay in our shelter system, you're going to get your ass to work, And so, I don't understand why we can't utilize that. I know everybody's making fun of the memes with Mondani, who's hiring temporary sanitation workers, and they require 2 forms of ID. But, if you ask for that to vote, it's racist. So I just think it's hysterical, man, all around. It's hysterical and it's sad at the same time. Billions of dollars a year, and you people are just killing yourselves to get everything done. And here I am worried about my house in Staten Island and everything else, so it's stupid.
Yeah. Morning, guys. It's kind of a mess here in New York. I was just showing John and Eric a picture of my window. The window's actually like blowing snow into the net. So your view of outside is really obstructed. But I mean, I'm gonna be spending basically all my day shoveling today, guys. So I feel for anybody else who's up here doing that, but it's gonna be over. It's gonna be all right, and it's not the end of the world, you know. But if you listen to all these politicians, it's like Snowmageddon. Remember that when they were using that a couple years ago? Snowmageddon.
Yep.
I mean, one of my biggest peeves with whenever it snows is that they act like it's the end of the world, and they act like people could just stay home and just sit it out. When people got places to go. You got places to go, and you got family. My parents are older; they're half city away. And I can't just sit at home and. So I bring that up because I saw this last night, and I kind of I wasn't. I don't like the normalization of this whole non-essential thing. Maybe it's just me, but everyone, in my opinion, everyone who has to go out in this crappy weather, nobody's doing it because they want to. Anybody who's on this road is doing it because they have no choice. They either have to be at work, or like I said, they have to go help out family. And I saw this, and I was like, what are we doing here? Why don't we just throw the RMPs behind the sanitation trucks, and let's keep it moving. Let's get these streets clear so New York City, the city that never sleeps, remember we were once that city that never sleeps, could keep it moving. So I saw this, and I'm like, what the hell are we doing here? We're wasting first. Why are these officers just sitting there? Is there an accident up front? Is that the reason why? I hope so, because it just doesn't make sense to me. And like I said, these guys think that just because the snow falls, or just because we're in a blizzard, that shit stops, and it doesn't, because people have places to be and things to do. So, but yeah, we got a lot to talk about with this case, and keep in mind, a couple of weeks ago, we also talked about another officer who was indicted in Brooklyn, and I'll point out how they're not too dissimilar.
Well, absolutely. So, I mean, we come to a point now in New York City where, in a criminalized society, in a revolving door with bail reform, the offender has the hierarchy, and the offenders, the persons of interest, the subjects of crime, have been given a blanket of protection and every amenity afforded to them to evade any criminal activity, as far as spending time in jail. I mean, everything has been done to let people walk. But when you're an NYPD police officer, it's been a different metric and measure. Now, I understand. I know the old cliche saying, cops are held to a higher standard. Yes. But we've now come to a point where cops go to work, and their mistakes and their errors, whether they're minor or something major, has been critiqued by the smallest microscope possible. And cops are now, they're being scrutinized by the DA's office in a manner that I think is almost just impossible. And it's got to be scary at this point. And it is scary. If you're a cop that you go to work right now, that you have to be so cautious, and you're already walking a fine line. Your life is on the line every day. You're a complete target. There's so much oversight. And now you have to worry if an administrative error or any error of policy can be configured to being charged criminally. So, I mean, I think we really come to a pinnacle moment here, especially now that Zohran Mamdani is mayor. Could we see more progressiveness? Could we see more attacks on police officers? We already, even with Eric Adams and former Mayor Bill de Blasio, we had an extreme amount of disdain for police officers. But, and I'm not saying that it's going to be worse because it's Zohran Mamdani, but we are progressively, increasingly making it much more difficult to be a New York City police officer, because as time goes on, more legislation has been compounded, more critique has been compounded, and no one has supported police officers. Even Eric Adams. I know I've heard quite different from many cops, but I said you really need to read between the lines and see what's happening. Just because you're getting overtime does not mean that you're being supported. You have to ask yourself why you get that overtime, and that's completely short-sighted. It's not going to last. So I mean, listen, there's different ways to skin a cat. There's different ways to look at this. So let's jump into this. We'll start getting analysis of what we think, and we'll go around. John, you start.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Good morning. So what are we talking about? So Alvin Bragg is recently indicted 2 NYPD officers. He's accusing these officers of covering up a DWI incident, a DWI crash that involved another off-duty NYPD officer where no injuries were involved. So originally, when you read the headline, you're like, "Oh, wow, that's messed up, right? He covered up the DWI." And then I was like, I wonder what happened. So then I start to read through the indictment, and we'll bring you the indictment and we'll go through it. What Bragg's saying, but I read it and I'm like, the cop who they allegedly helped cover up the DWI for was arrested the same evening and was ultimately was prosecuted and convicted of the crime. So I'm like, wait, time out. So I'm like, wait. So what's the crime? What crime have these officers done? And then we start to look through the indictment, and we'll go in depth point by point, but there's 2 things that really stand out for me. The one big thing is they put a big emphasis on these officers texting each other on the scene. One, I don't know what crime is being alleged that the DA could now get your personal cell phone data, but just be aware, any job you respond to as a police officer at this point, your phone's a fair game. Unions haven't said a word about it. Your phones are completely fair game, and they're reading into what these officers text each other. So the officers approach the vehicle, and apparently what the DA is alleging is that it was very obvious that the individual was drunk. And one of the officers had texted the other officer that this is bad. I don't know what to do. And then at some point, one of the officers took his body camera off and handed it to the other cop. Now, again, I don't see where a crime comes into play when we ultimately get a conviction, an arrest and a conviction that same evening. If you want to say that they tampered with evidence and it resulted in this person not being prosecuted, I could see that. But showing that the person was convicted of the crime and was arrested later that evening, really, I have to really say that this appears to be like a malicious, politically driven prosecution, because I don't see any other way around it. They're taking what these 2 officers texted each other, and I don't care if they texted each other or they said it to each other on a body camera. What DA Alvin Bragg is basically saying is he's saying that NYPD officers must be absolutely perfect, make the absolutely perfect decision in the moment without ever being able to contemplate anything. So, they're younger officers. So it's very obvious to me, and should be obvious to the public, but maybe it's not. Should definitely be obvious to the DA in Manhattan that officers need instruction. They need supervision. The NYPD patrol guide is about legitimately this big. It's huge. It's like several encyclopedias put together. So you cannot expect an officer to understand the entirety of the patrol guide and how to act properly in every single situation, right? You just can't. I mean, we have sergeants, lieutenants, captains, chiefs. We have high-ranking chiefs that do not understand that book and do not understand. I could sit down with basically anyone in the police department, including Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, and I could give her 3 scenarios, and she's going to need guidance on how to handle those 3 scenarios. 3 different basic scenarios, because that's how in-depth the patrol guide is. So what they're telling you is that you're not allowed to have a conversation. You're not allowed to think things through and talk things out. And I think that on its face, if you're saying that, that's what they're saying is criminal. They're saying that trying to figure out what's the best plan to go about this situation is criminal. So what ultimately happens is they respond to the individual, they talk to him, they get his ID, they call their lieutenant, so they ring the bell. We got an off-duty officer here, right? They call their lieutenant, and as they go back to their car, the male drives off. Later on that evening, duty captain goes to that person's house, arrests that person. They're ultimately convicted. So, you know, there's a lot to get through here. We'll go through every step of it, but those are the two big things here: is your phones are up for grabs, and it's okay to charge for thought crimes now, not things that you actually did, for what they believe you were thinking based upon what you were saying, based upon what questions you were asking. And I'm looking at the entire scenario. Even if there was malicious intent, and I don't believe so. I don't believe so at all. I just think it was two rookie cops figuring out what they were going to do and how to proceed cautiously, because they knew that this was a big problem. This was an off-duty incident. I think, it's to me that there's nothing here that says that this isn't malicious. I think that even if they did it intently, like they were like, no, we're going to let this guy go, we're going to cover all this stuff up, the fact of what plays out later, I think, covers that up. But I think as we read through this indictment, you're going to see that's not exactly not what happened at all. And these officers were just unsure of how to proceed. And there was just a lot of circumstances that came into play. So, yeah. So sorry for that long-winded rant. Marlon, what's up, brother?
Yeah, what's up, bro? Yeah, don't tell a certain lawyer any of that, But yeah, I read this press release and I'm like, am I missing something in here? The guy pulls off on them, They're calling for a supervisor and the guy peels off on him. What do you want him to do? Chase him? I mean, I don't understand here. What am I missing here? We're the same department that doesn't train. I mean, how many cops on the job really know the elements necessary for a DWI? I can guarantee you that it's maybe, I'd say maybe 40% actually know, maybe even 30%, But the same job who doesn't train cops properly, right, is now going to sit back and let the DA prosecute them when they fail to properly respond to a call or to an incident. And that's outrageous now, The bar for corruption, for alleged corruption is dipped so low now we're getting into administrative administrative BS and poor inadequate responses to jobs. When are we going to stop prosecuting cops for wearing white socks or for not shaving properly? Is that coming next? I said that about 2 weeks ago when we talked about the other officer in Sunset Park. So for those of you who don't know, this happened February 11th. The Brooklyn DA's office indicted Officer Karan McFatter of the 7-2 precinct. This was the cop who was involved in that back and forth with this leftist guy who was angry that the cop initially drove his car through Sunset Park itself. And we spoke about how the officer was certainly in the wrong to confront this leftist like he did, but the entire incident seemed like a matter that should have been handled via the NYPD's internal disciplinary system, and not something that rose to the level of prosecution by the DA's office, So things are going so screwy, after getting what they want, after you got these leftist DAs and these leftist politicians who've gotten what they wanted, you've gotten things like the diaphragm law, you've gotten plenty of changes in the department, guys are scared of even, telling a guy you can't put the camera in my face anymore, guys are afraid of it, and that's not enough. So now we got to start prosecuting you if you fail to cross a T or dot a I, and or your training was inadequate, and then when you respond to a job, you fail to properly do the job. Okay, and the outcome of it was not somebody getting injured or losing their life, but it's a shame. And I just like in the case in Brooklyn, we didn't get much of a response from the unions. I don't expect much of a response from here either, but I do expect a speech from Pat Hendry when this cop gets quitted in a year or two.
So this actually works out perfect, right? So John, I said the reason you start, I thought we were going to start with the indictment, but I think it's actually good that we just go over some of the meat and potatoes before we jump into the indictment, just to give our own perspective. So I think there's some things that are just extremely problematic here, right? So one, John, you kind of mentioned it, right? So it takes out body cameras and the amount of oversight that cops have. It just takes out the human element. And I think it's not abnormal. I don't think anyone would think that it's, even if you're not a cop, to think that if two police officers stop an off-duty cop and potentially that cop is intoxicated, it's normal for two cops to say, damn, this is bad. This is bad. What are we going to do? That doesn't mean that they're saying that they're not going to make an arrest, but how are we going to handle this? For one, this could become a media frenzy, right? This could be, we're also dealing with a fellow off-duty cop, right? What type of resistance may we face? Right? All eyes are watching this. If someone finds out this is a cop, they're also maybe nervous they're rookie cops, of how to convene this to their bosses. They may have some fear. How will their bosses take to them, notifying them that they have an off-duty cop who's potentially driving while intoxicated? They're also on body camera. Body camera takes out the human element. We talked about this often. And there's no clear direction on this job. If we need to have a sidebar conversation, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think that means you're hiding anything. But if, rhetorically speaking, if Marlon and I or John and I were working together and we were cops and we were involved in a situation, there are times you need to have a sidebar conversation. Maybe tactically, we have an off-duty cop who may have a firearm on them, who's driving while intoxicated. How are we going to handle this? Something that, a conversation you may not want to have on body camera. I don't think it's abnormal to text each other like, oh shit, this is bad. What are we going to do? No one wants to be in that situation. But obviously, to me, that's an indication that they weren't looking to shit can it right away. Because if they were to go with the shit can it right away, they wouldn't even have that conversation. It would have been, all right, let's get the hell out of here. But that's not what they did. But the amount of scrutiny from the DA's office is just absolutely absurd, right? Because, how many people in this city are not charged? Cops arrest them, and immediately, once it gets to an assistant district attorney, those cases are not even drawn up. They're dismissed. There's not enough evidence or preponderance evidence just there to establish probable cause in the minds of the assistant district attorneys. But yet, two police officers are going to be charged. And are we going to bypass discretion? Cops still have discretion. Yes, driving while intoxicated, that discretion is limited, obviously, because you can't allow someone to drive away drunk. God forbid they hurt someone else and cause a fatality to themselves or someone else. But there's still discretion there of how they're going to handle it. It is limited. It's a limited scope. But everything just keeps getting eradicated when it comes to police officers. And what we want, and this is, and I don't say we, I mean by the DA's offices, what ultimately, and obviously with Alvin Bragg, is they want cops that are robotic. I've been telling you that eventually we're going to go to AI and robotics anyway, but that's what they want. They don't want cops to have sidebar conversations. They don't want humans. They want two robots. Oh, he's drunk, and just put handcuffs on him. I don't think there's anything absurd. John and Marlon, if we were all working together, and even as veterans, if we had a cop that was off duty, we would all say, oh shit, what do we do? What do we do? How do we handle this? Because it could go bad. Right? We have an off-duty cop who's potentially intoxicated, who could be armed, who could be going through some type of post-traumatic stress. We don't know what they're going through. So that is normal. I think sometimes slow is fast, and sometimes you have to slow things down and in order to be decisive, especially when you're dealing with an off-duty cop who's potentially intoxicated. It could become a media frenzy. I don't see anything wrong with them slowing things down. And ultimately, when they went back to their car to make a decision or whatever their next step was at that point, the off-duty cop took off. And exactly that. Do you want them to now take off and pursue an intoxicated driver and now escalate the situation? We talk about de-escalation. And sometimes and often, and the NYPD has done it late. Many times lately, there's times we discuss on this network where someone is a potential threat, and the NYPD backs off and goes back and arrests the person hours later to de-escalate the situation. Why is this any different? Why is this any different? Because it's two cops? Because it's a political target? That's why.
There's a couple of things. I always said from the beginning the body cameras were a terrible idea, and the body cameras were going to cause way more problems than they were ever going to solve. And you see it right here. Right here, it's tampering with evidence. If you don't put your body camera on, it's tampering with evidence. If you remove your body camera for a second, if you shut your camera off for a second, it went from, oh, these are going to help you to these are going to get you indicted. Like real quick. Like took probably about a week. Took probably about a week to this is going to get you substantiated. We're going to get you for thought crimes. We're going to get you for your words. We're going to get you for absolutely everything. So, the same unions that got you 2.5% to wear those body cameras are now not talking about any of the issues related to the body camera. So, one, is it criminal? It's obviously it is now, right? Is it criminal if you shut your body camera off on a job? We now know it is, right? We now know it is. You're going to get indicted. You're going to get indicted. 2.5%. Was it worth it? You can't have a conversation in your vehicle any longer. 2.5%. Was it worth it? You can't talk. Let's just say the body camera's rolling. We're in the car, and I'm like, yo, should we let him go? And you're like, nah, let's call the lieutenant. We call the lieutenant, he takes off. What'd I do? What is that, a conspiracy? Is that a conspiracy to commit a crime? Or is that me just talking?
It's racist.
Well, definitely racist. Definitely racist. It's but seriously, like that's where the level you're at right now is like you're not allowed to talk something out anymore in a car. And we've all done it. Look, am I going to sit here and say that every person that I pulled over wasn't drunk and I didn't let some people go? You're damn right. I'm 100% did. I've called people here, come to the scene, come get this person. I've done it. They're not driving. I've used my discretion. That's one. I mean, are we going to get away from that? I guess I guess that's what the police department wants. I mean, that's what they want, but that's what they want when it suits them. When it's their nephew, when it's their child, when it's their drunken husband, when it's their drunken wife, they're going to sing an entirely different tune, right? They're going to sing an entirely different tune. And I'm not saying that people should get let go for drinking and driving, especially when there's injuries involved, especially when there's a death involved. Those things should be investigated to the hilt, and they should be handled perfectly. But talking in a car and notifying your lieutenant and texting each other while you're on the job with another MOS feet away from you, who understands all of your radio codes, who understands everything that you're talking about, I don't see it. I'm sorry, I don't see a crime there. Obviously, I would be texting because I would be texting my partner too. This guy I can't give a radio code. He knows it unless we have another language that we use. And I've known with the guy that I'm working with. I've worked with him for a long time. There's no way where we're going to be able to talk without this cop knowing exactly what the hell we're talking about. So I'm going to be texting my partner. And at the end of the day, they notified the supervisor. They had him properly ID'd. It wasn't like they obstructed giving the guy's ID, his plate, his license plate. No, this is what we had. We had him. He appeared to be intoxicated. And he took off once we notified the supervisor. So, but these are the things you have to worry about now as a New York City police officer. Your phones, you text each other, that's it. DA could get your phone. They could get all your text messages, everything in there. It's all fair game. Union has no problem with it. Your body camera, if you shut it off, it's now tampering with evidence. You will be arrested. Your union has no problem with it. If you even just have a conversation in the car and the DA doesn't like the way you're talking in the car, they believe you were being secretive or you were plotting something, you will be arrested. You will be accused of tampering with evidence. Unions have no problem with it, apparently. I mean, like, these are major, major privacy concerns that are coming out in this case. No one's even talking about it. And again, I think this is an NYPD minority report. Alvin Bragg's bringing the first case. Glad to see Pat Hendry, doing his whole. But it's not working, Pat. It's not working. Like you like the fact of the matter is, you have attorneys on payroll. What do they do? What part of this evidence of this indictment are you seeking to be thrown out? What part of it? Which part of it? Because it all should be thrown out, in my opinion. Why are their text messages fair game? Why are they getting charged for shutting off a body camera? These are administrative issues. Why are they even on trial for covering up a DWI that the person was ultimately prosecuted for? What's happening? What do? Do you just my brother-in-law is an attorney, so we're gonna put him on the payroll? Like, what's happening here? What's happening? Did anyone care? Does anyone know? Does anyone care? Nah, let's just have a Man of the Year party, give it to Alvin Bragg, tell him what a great partner he is in crime fighting with us. And then you, Jessica Tish, and Alvin Bragg stand up, take photos together.
Yeah. I'd like to know what has changed since since Bragg tried to lock up Officer Salvador Provenzano. If you guys recall that the Apple Store incident from a couple of years ago, Officer Provenzano, they had a gentleman, I believe he was part of EDP, but Officer Provenzano punched the man, and he was indicted for I think it was, what was it for assault 3 they charged him with. But he was eventually acquitted, and we said at the time that it was like ridiculous. It's complete nonsense. John and Eric said at the time it was complete nonsense. And it was. And I was watching Pat Hendry's speech after that, where he talked about how the prosecution seemed malicious because certain things were left out. And my question is, what has changed since then? Now we have Bragg going after cops for internal disciplinary matters, and what have you been doing in that time frame? What has changed? You have these speeches afterwards, and then as these incidents leave the news cycle, we never hear any updates about it. We never hear what you did to prevent the next cop from getting indicted by Bragg's nonsense again. And I also want to point out that it seems to me that, I don't know if Bragg does this on election years or what, but it's like, you're not, I doubt this cop is going to have to do any time for this nonsense, in the absence, unless we're missing something here. Okay. And in which case you would have mentioned it certainly in the news, in the release from the DA's office. But reading that, I don't see how these cops are going to go to jail for that. Okay. And the question is, what's the point? What is Bragg doing? Is this just to raise an issue for a political year for the Democrats? Is this only to rile up the base and get them to motivate them to go to the polls? I just don't understand what's the point of this. But like I said, what are unions doing? What have you been doing, Pat? Where does the union dues actually go to? What productivity does the union dues actually go towards?
So I want to have this conversation. I want to address good friend here to the podcast network. Stay trained up. How you doing, brother? Says Eric, I'm not allowing anyone to drive away while DWI. Stop it. Okay. So let's have a real conversation. Stay trained up. I assume, excuse me, I assume you're on the job. Maybe retired now. So put yourself in the same position. You have an off-duty cop that is potentially driving while intoxicated or driving under the influence. We don't know what the level of intoxication was. At least I don't for this case. So you have an off-duty cop behind the wheel. Are you treating that off-duty cop exactly the same as every person of interest you've encountered or occupant? I highly doubt it. I find it hard to believe. If you are, I mean, I think that's kind of robotic, because if I have an off-duty cop, I would assume that that's not someone that I have to create a barrier at the car or stand full watch that they're going to drive away. I would not think an off-duty cop is going to drive away. Most of us would not think that. I would not think that, an off-duty cop would do something like that. I would definitely give them the benefit of the doubt. Would I have my guard down a little bit? Yeah, I think humanly, I think you would, dealing with a fellow off-duty cop. I'm not saying I wouldn't make the arrest. If they're driving while intoxicated, and unfortunately you're the unlucky person to make that stop and be in that situation, you have to do your job. You have to do it properly, yes. But am I going to stand there and create a barrier? No. Maybe, listen, there's other ways to skin a cat. Maybe I would take the keys out and try to get them out of the car yet. But again, as I said, you have to be careful with these things, and maybe that's the discussion they were having. You're dealing with an off-duty cop. Potentially they are armed. You don't know what they're going through. You don't want this to get to a point that you may have to have any physical confrontation. I don't think anyone wants to have a physical confrontation or any resistance from a fellow cop. So I find it hard to believe that you're saying that you're not going to let anyone drive away. I mean, I'm not putting my car in front and stopping them. It depends on the situation. But I would say in most cases, dealing with a fellow off-duty cop, you're probably going to give them a little more, I guess you could say, leniency in a sense that, or trust that they're not going to drive away on you. This is not a case that we hear every day. So I think the tactics would be different. At the same time, I'm not saying you completely disarm yourself, right? Because again, dealing with an off-duty cop, they could potentially be armed while intoxicated. But I do think that encounter would play out differently.
Yeah, if I can, before you go, John, stay trained up. One of our best views, by the way.
Yes, absolutely.
He works in a southern agency. I'm not going to give the state or whatever, but he's mentioned it before. But it's different up here, state trained. I'm not sure if you left here for down south, but if you've been up here, you know certainly that. I mean, we're a much more congested area than down south. Down south, you are trained to do things like pit maneuvers and to conduct these pursuits that you're not trained to do up here, and you would be out of your mind to even proceed with a pursuit of this guy. I'm sorry, he may be intoxicated, but again, we're dealing with a very congested area where you'll start pursuing him, and then he'll get into an accident, and then he'll kill people, and then you're definitely going to go to jail for that. So, I mean, can you blame them for even if they had the opportunity to say, I mean, the point I'm trying to make is, can you blame them for not pursuing the vehicle? You can't. What are they gonna do? They're gonna. It's not. You got to weigh the risk to public safety and what you're going after him for. And in this case, it certainly would not be worth it to pursue him further.
Absolutely. And what's fresh in their mind? What's fresh in their mind is that Sergeant Eric Duran was just convicted and found guilty of throwing a cooler at a fleeing felon who's now facing potentially 15 years in jail. So I'm sure that's in the back of their mind also. There's a lot of things going on here. I find it hard to believe that a fellow cop would operate in the same manner, and especially put themselves in a position where they're going to pursue a car who's potentially intoxicated. I don't agree with that.
First of all, any cop that's saying that, and I don't give a shit if it's stay trained up or anyone else, they're full of shit. So that's first off. You roll up to the scene of an accident. There is an off-duty member of the service that works for your own department. Your own department stays trained up. He's identified Where's he going? Where's he going? What is he doing? He's getting on the next plane to Europe? Where's he going? Even if he flees that scene, where is he going? Where's he going? He's screwed. He's effed. What are you going to do? You're going to escalate the scene? You're going to give me your keys. You're going to walk up to the car as soon as you see the dude. You're going to make the assessment. He's drunk. That's it. It's over. Give me your keys. I'm calling the boss here. You're effed. You walk back to your car. He takes his gun out and he blows his head off. You did a great job, bro. You did awesome. Yeah, because you didn't let him get away. You know, that's a really tricky situation right there. That's especially when you're a young cop. That's a hard situation when you're a supervisor, a seasoned supervisor. You're a young cop. You're two young cops. You're working together. You're the blind leading the blind. You roll up on that job. You got this guy's ID. Like, fuck. Damn. This guy's career. This guy's got a problem. We're gonna have to arrest this guy. This guy's getting arrested. He's probably got a gun on him. He probably knows he's screwed. You know, you don't know how to proceed. You're trying to de-escalate that situation. Eric's 100% right. You're going to handle that situation a lot differently than you're going to handle somebody that you don't know, someone that's not identified, that, yeah, you got his ID, but you really don't know him. This guy, you know, he's an NYPD cop. He ain't going nowhere. He's not going. What am I chasing him for? All right, you're going to kill and crash and kill someone? It ain't on me, bro. I'll just come get you later. He fled the scene. He took off truck. You're still getting terminated. You're still getting prosecuted. Nothing's changing. You're getting the tampering with evidence. I'm not going after you. I mean, come on, man. You know, like I love cops that think that they're robots. You know, like you're a robot. That's how you treat people. All right. Well, you know, I'm sure. You know, I'm sure you don't handle situations too well. I'm sure you escalate in situations more than you de-escalate in situations. I'm sure you're not being good. If that's the kind of way that you're rolling up on people, I mean, you know, I don't know, man. I've done a lot. I've dealt with a lot of this, a lot of off-duty incidents, a lot of them. They're horrible. They suck. And when you're a young cop and you haven't dealt with them and you don't understand the gravity of the situation, you don't understand, you're going to need a lot of guidance. You're going to need a lot of guidance. Like I've said numerous times on this show, I've said it as a cop. I've said it on this show. This job tests your soul. It tests your morality. It tests your integrity every single day. And just because you falter in a moment and you have to talk something out doesn't mean you violated your integrity. Just because you have to think of something doesn't mean, if you're going to sit there and say, no, my thoughts are perfect, you're a liar. Go run for politics. Go to city council. They're all perfect. Go become the governor. Go become the president. They're all perfect people. You know, I'll sit here and I'll tell you, I've dealt with many off-duty situations, and I've had all those thoughts in my head. Oh, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. You know, oh, man, this could be me. Oh, man, this could be Eric. This could be Marlon. You know, I've had all those thoughts. And at the end of the day, I held true to my integrity. You know why? Because I realized, I'm like, I didn't create this situation. This off-duty officer put us in this situation. It is what it is. And as a seasoned supervisor, I understood how to deal with those situations. But very young on this job, very young supervisor, you're going to question yourself. You're going to do it in your head. And it's not a crime to do it out loud either. But I'm 100% not chasing that vehicle. I know who he is. I know where he lives. I know who pays his bills. I am not getting into a pursuit when we just watched officer after officer get indicted. The police commissioner changed the entire pursuit policy. I'm not doing it. All right. Yeah, you ran from the scene. I already notified my supervisor. He ran from the scene. That's it. Like, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to go to his house? Where do you want us to proceed with this? These are very tricky situations. This is a situation that needs a ton of training, a ton of de-escalation, because, again, what are you thinking when that guy flees the scene? He's going to pull down the block and blow his head off. That's what I'm thinking. Or he's just going to start shooting at me and make me do it. One or the other. Your life's in severe danger. I'm not pursuing in there. And any cop that says they're good, do it. Do it. Your career will be filled with a lot of trouble, and hopefully you won't be on the stand And you won't be looking at a prosecutor like this who's going to say, where was the human element in any of this? Where was the cop to care? He didn't care. It was just a robot. He didn't care. You pursued. You did this. You know, I don't know, man. I've been in too many of these situations. He takes off on me. He's taking off on me. We're going to take it slow, and we're going to move careful, and we're going to decide our next steps.
Yeah, guys in the chat, don't be too hard at Stay Trained Up. Stay Trained Up is good people's. You know, I've seen some of his comments. He's spot on most of the time. You know, we just happen to disagree with this comment, and like I said, Stay Trained Up is, you know, from what he said in the chat, sounds like a good cop. Okay, it's just you know, it's two different areas. You know, and things are different up here. You know. I've seen videos of the equivalent evac courses that some cops down there they have to go through. Evac, for those civilians who are watching here, is the emergency vehicle operations operators course, and it's basically to teach you the driving skills you'll need in pursuing a vehicle. You know, once you become a uniform officer, right? I've seen some of it that they do in down south, and like I you know, I approach it with my New York cop, looking at it from the perspective of a New York cop, and I just think you'd be crazy to do that nowadays. Even down south, I think you're crazy to do that because again, a lot of places like down south or they have a lot more people than they do in prior years. You know, a lot more people.
A lot of that stuff's going to change, Marlon. A lot of that stuff, they're becoming big city, and they're going to go through the same changes in New York City. That's becoming just as dense down south, especially in Florida. It's becoming just as dense.
Yeah. So it's 100%. I agree that's going to change soon. But the thing is, when you're looking at this from the perspective of a New York cop, it's just not worth it. You know, it's just not worth it. And the other thing is, like John said, where is this cop going to go? I mean, you know, in a lot of down south agencies, there's been a lot of incidents where they pull over cops from adjoining jurisdictions or agencies that are within the same maybe county or the neighboring county, and they don't really know them. You know, I mean, if you're pulling over an NYPD cop and you're an NYPD cop, it's kind of different. You know how the job works. You know, there's more than enough to identify this cop and find him. You know how the city works. You know how your geographical area of employment and your agency works. So I think it's just two different viewpoints, and I'm not. You know, I'm not going to be too hard on him because it's just different up here. And you guys, those cops, I think we're absolutely in the right to not pursue it and not make this escalate even further.
So stay trained up. Don't go anywhere. Hang out. That's what's so great about this network and what's so unique is that the audience, our friends, our listeners, you're a part of the conversation and you're a part of the show. And you're a part of the show right now, and we appreciate it. I always say opposition, opposition meets opportunity. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I have a different opinion, and I just want you to take a step back for a moment and imagine yourself in that situation with an off-duty cop and how you would feel. Before we just jump to conclusion, just think about both sides. And was it Sergeant Renzelli here? Is that what it is? Says a drunk person, cop or not, should not be allowed to get away from you and back into their car to drive away. We're having the same conversation with Stay Trained Up. It's a much different situation. I've been in off-duty situations, probably not as often as you guys. I know you both worked in, well, not Marlon, but John, you worked in Brooklyn South. And I know there's a lot of off-duty stuff in Brooklyn South because there's a lot of cops that live there. There's a lot of cops that go out in Brooklyn South, right? Like 6-8 precinct. Some of those precincts I know bordered the 6-6 precinct. I worked in the South Bronx. I had some off-duty incidents, not as many, but every off-duty incident is a horrible situation. As I said earlier, just think, not even just a firearm. Just think about the feeling. You're in that situation, and now you have to make all those notifications. What kind of media frenzy could that be, right? You want this to go as quietly as possible to make the arrest. Now, there's a difference. I understand. There's a difference between favoritism and just the human element to this, right? And I think what we're talking about right now, from what I see based on my observations, this is just the human element. Two cops trying to have a sidebar conversation. Oh, shit. This is bad. This sucks to be in this situation. What are we going to do? They're not saying. Now, if they would have said, shit, how do we get out of this situation? How do we not arrest this guy? That's something different. But they said, what do we do? I think most people think, all right, what do we do? Because how are we going to handle this? The last thing you want to do is lock up a fellow off-duty cop, but they didn't say they're not going to. And now you have to make notifications, and this can be an extreme media frenzy, and you can be dragged into it also. And let's think about also the amount of scrutiny you're going to get from your peers. Even though you're doing the right thing, you might be thinking, what are the other cops going to say? Oh, you're a piece of shit. You locked up an off-duty cop, right? What did you do here? Couldn't you have taken another avenue? Is this something else you could have done? And you know people are going to say that, even though today's day things have changed, the amount of scrutiny. And when you're in a situation with an off-duty cop who's potentially driving while intoxicated, unfortunately, they have given you no choice. So I talked about discretion, and unfortunately, because of optics, you pretty much have no choice. You can't just say, you know what, step out of the car, let's park the car, have someone pick it up, and I'll drive you home, because you'd be jammed up for that too. So I think we have to be a little more understanding to be in that situation. It's a horrible situation, but I don't think they showed any favoritism. I just think they're showing the human element. I mean, me personally, if I was in that situation, I'd be thinking the same thing. Like, damn, even as a veteran, not even as a rookie, like, shit. How did I roll the dice that I ended up in this situation today? How am I going to handle this? Right? John makes a good point. And that's why I keep talking about the off-duty firearm. How do I make sure he doesn't shoot at us or shoot himself or just do something stupid, right? Because now his whole, right? You have to think it's much different too, right? If you stop some person of interest, a perpetrator who doesn't have a career and nothing to lose, it's far different. But when you stop someone who's an off-duty cop who has everything to lose, who's a New York City police officer, and you know damn well that after that arrest, their name is going to the paper, this is far different. You're like, shit, the avalanche is coming on you. What are my fellow cops going to think? How pissed is my boss going to be when now I notify my boss that he has to come to the scene and arrest an off-duty cop with me? I mean, this is a lot compounded on your brain of what's going on here, the amount of emotion involved. And if you're telling me there's not emotion involved, then you're not human yourself, because you're looking at an off-duty cop and saying, damn, that could be me. Or you're like, damn, thank God I don't do those things. Or if you ever drove drunk, you're thinking, shit, I'll never do that again. Maybe that was a learning lesson also. It's a very difficult situation. I don't think anyone could just say it's let's just stop them. Oh yeah, let's make the arrest. I'm making sure he's not getting away. I find it hard to believe that that's going to be the mindset. If that is your mindset, how then completely we lost camaraderie, or just the feeling, the human element feeling for one another. I just, again, stay trained up. We really appreciate your engagement. Sergeant Renzelli, same thing. We're supposed to have opposing opinions and stay in the conversation. We want you here. So let's continue. Thank you.
Croita says it again. Yeah, too. They shouldn't be allowed to leave, but shit happens. Look, nobody's allowed to leave, and they know they're not allowed to leave. But am I really gonna am I gonna do a pit maneuver on an off-duty drunk cop? Am I really gonna risk my life, my career, and my freedom further than it already is just by signing up and swearing in and saying, yeah, no, I want to do this job. I could do this job. Yeah, no, I believe that everything's good. I'm not. I'm just not. Look, you want to do it? Good, do it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I know who he is. He's identified. The only threat he is right now, is he a threat driving around to others? Yeah, but I'm not going to have him feel like I'm not going to be doing a vehicle pursuit. I'm just not. I'm not doing a vehicle pursuit with a drunken off-duty cop who's more than likely armed. I don't know. Call me crazy, but I just don't think it's a good situation. I think we could get him when cooler heads prevail. And I think that if you read the NYPD patrol guide, it tells you exactly to do exactly that. That's what it is. Like, go through the patrol guide procedure. That's how it instructs you to handle. You will do when there's no other means of apprehending if the person is immediate threat. Is he immediate threat because he's drunk? Yes, I agree with you, Stay Trained Up. I agree with you, Crow Eater. He is immediate threat to others. Are you escalating that immediate threat to others by pursuing? Yes. Do you necessarily need to get him right at that moment in time? No, you don't. And I'll argue that. I'll argue that forever because I'm not putting myself in that situation. I'm not putting him in the situation, and I'm not putting the public in that situation. I'm not, because I'm more than likely it's a more dangerous situation than if he was a wanted perp. And because I'm telling you, he thinks his life's over at that point. Some perps don't really give a shit if they get locked up, and they're not too worried about it. They know they'll live to fight another day. You know, this guy's career is down. He doesn't know what's happening. You know what I mean? More than likely that firearm's getting used, whether it's used against you or on him. That more than likely that's happening. I don't want to be involved in that situation. So, and I think that I don't think they did absolutely anything wrong by having those conversations. I don't think they did anything wrong if they hesitated when he pulled away, because aren't we told to step back, de-escalate? You know, let's go through this. Let's go through what Bragg says. So Manhattan District Attorney Alvin L. Bragg Jr. today announced the indictment of 2 New York City police officers, Michael Caligari, 31, and Ryan McLaughlin, 30, for allegedly covering up a drunk driving crash involving an off-duty officer and manipulating evidence. Right? So one, just on the face of it, did they actually cover up a drunk driving crash if the individual was arrested that evening, later convicted of the crime? I say that is completely ridiculous. Right? If you want to say that somehow they manipulated evidence because you had to charge a lesser charge, maybe we could have that conversation. But did they actually cover up a drunk driving crash? Is that an accurate statement? And what do you guys think?
Yeah, I don't see where he's coming from on that. You know, I said, like, I read this and I'm like, what am I missing here? You know, what am I missing here? This sounds like 2 rookies who exactly, like you said, John, they don't know how to respond, how to react to this situation because they probably never experienced it. And they maybe there's a little bit of panic in there because, again, they don't know what to do. But this doesn't read like a cover up to me. And 2 rookies, what do they know about covering up a Dewey? You know what? I mean, how exactly are you going to cover up a Dewey nowadays with a body camera? And anyway, the body camera records footage before you actually turn it on. I mean, there are holes in this, and again, I read it and I'm like, what am I missing here? But before we continue, just a quick story for you guys. Again, we're serious about this pursuit thing, because this has come up so often in the recent years, and there's still cases pending with these CRT guys, the khaki pants guys, and these DAs are just waiting for the opportunity to indict these guys. And this is some serious stuff that we're talking about. These pursuits, we live in a time this isn't the 80s, this isn't the 90s or the early 2000s, okay? Things are different now. You have a lot of technology around us that can track these vehicles. You don't necessarily need to pursue them unless the guy is like, you have to weigh the threat to the public before you begin chasing them. One of my last times on patrol, I mentioned this story before. Me and my partner chased that guy from Eastern Parkway all the way down to maybe like 4 or 5 blocks south of Empire Boulevard in the 7-1. So we went like straight down, and we were going like, this guy was running red lights nonstop. And at a certain point, I was like, bro, turn off the lights. This is over. This guy is out of his mind. And we stood back and we saw him run the red lights straight down, all the way down, like he was heading. This guy must have been at the middle of Brooklyn, in no time. And that scared the hell out of me, because I thought, What if we had killed somebody in this, bro? I'm like, we don't know what we had. We went to pull over the guy and the guy peeled off on us. We don't know what we had. He could have been drunk. There could have been a gun in the car. But was this really worth it to be going into the heart of Brooklyn, where it's congested? There are kids even in a lot of these neighborhoods playing late at night, running into the dark and into the street at a moment's notice. Is it worth it to possibly endanger the life of a child doing this? It's not worth it. So this is something like, regardless of whether you're a cop in New York or wherever, you really have to think about these days. You really do, because again, a lot of those areas where you thought were more suburban or rural, they're no longer the case, because populations have shifted, especially in the aftermath of the scandemic. So this is some serious stuff that people really, really need to keep in mind all the time and not get pulled into tunnel vision at the moment.
Well, my man right here, my brother Mike Smith. Mike Smith, retired detective, was a real cop. And the Smith 72, here he is. He says, I worked in Manhattan. This guy Bragg is a human piece of shit. He's all about cop indictments or Danny Penny. Other than that, his office does shit. Now, this is a great point. Why? Because Mike Smith, if anyone knows, retired detective from the 5th Precinct, was actually on the case making the arrest for Daniel Penny. Mike Smith, retired detective, had to actually do a walkout with Daniel Penny and actually place him in handcuffs. And I'm sure Mike Smith was having conversations with other cops like, damn, this sucks. Because they know damn well that arrest was unnecessary, was an overreach, was absolutely absurd. And I'm sure Mike Smith, think about it now, if they would have checked his phones, I'm sure they had conversations with fellow cops like, oh, this sucks that we have to do this. Oh, damn. But guess what? They still did it. They still did it. So is that a conspiracy? Because I'm sure even when they were doing the walkout, if anyone could go into Mike Smith's mind, and I know Mike Smith because he's a real cop, he was probably thinking, fuck, why is it me? Why do I have to do this? But he still did it. So should we arrest Mike Smith for that? Mike, let's go back. Let's arrest him because he was thinking those thoughts. So that's what they're telling you right now. You can't think like a human being anymore. You can't vent. You can't have a sidebar conversation like, damn. So you're telling me, Alvin Bragg, you don't have sidebar conversations with your people about a case like, shit, how are we going to handle this? This is a media frenzy. Where could this go? So what you're telling me, this is what they're telling me, John and Marlon. This is what I'm getting. Ready? What those two cops should have done, they should have chased him and threw a cooler at him. That's what they should have done. But apparently, so it's catch-22, because if he did chase him and throw a cooler at him, you'd be shit out of luck. If you let him go, you're shit out of luck. The bottom line is, if you're an NYPD cop with the amount of scrutiny, you can't win. You go left, you're screwed. You go right, you're screwed. It's absolutely bullshit. So why is Sergeant Eric Duran sentenced? Why is his life turned upside down? Because he tried to stop a fleeing perpetrator, and you're saying those two cops should have done the same thing. That off-duty cop at that moment, if he was driving while intoxicated, was in fact a perpetrator at that point, right? Not of a violent crime, but of a crime. So those two cops should have chased him down and threw a cooler. And if they did, we'd be having a different conversation. You just can't win.
It's a lose-lose situation. And Sergeant, what's his name? Sergeant Ronzelli. I hope you're not an actual sergeant, because I mean, the first thing I said, and I think I've said it every go around, is that they immediately notified the lieutenant. And the how are they guilty of covering anything up when the off-duty cop was identified and the supervisor was notified? They rang the bell, said it's over. You got the dude's getting like it's going. There's no cover up of anything there, just based on that. Patrick Reddington says it here. There was no cover up. They called the boss. The subject was collared for DWI. He was later convicted of DWI. There were no injuries. End of story. I said it from day one. So, listen up. It's what good sergeants do. So, all right, let's continue further on to this press release. The defendants are charged with one count of tampering with public records in the first degree, one count of falsifying business records in the first degree, one count of tampering with physical evidence, and 2 counts of official misconduct. Defendants allegedly went to great lengths to protect a fellow officer from accountability, said the District Attorney Alvin Bragg. This type of conduct significantly harms the public trust in law enforcement. Everyone must be treated the same under the law, regardless of their position or their background. That's funny. That is funny. That's a good statement. As alleged in court documents and statements made on the record, on October 16, 2024, at approximately 10:18 p.m., a civilian called 911 to report a car crash involving an intoxicated driver at West 26th Street and 8th Avenue. The defendants responded to the call, and once they arrived at the scene, the civilian informed McLaughlin that the driver in the 2020 Infiniti SUV was intoxicated. The civilian also stated that the driver of the Infiniti had allegedly shown him a police badge and identified himself as a police officer. An NYPD issued parking placard was also on the dashboard of the vehicle. The driver of the Infiniti, Eli Garcia, allegedly struggled to provide his license and was unable to locate the vehicle registration, but did show Calgary an NYPD identification card. Calgary never questioned Garcia about his supposed intoxicated state and positioned his body-worn camera so that it would not fully capture his interaction with Garcia. So let's just stop right there. So you get to the scene, you get a 911 call. You signed up to be a New York City police officer. You get a 911 call. You get there, and somebody's at the scene telling you this guy's drunk. You know how often that happens? Like 5 times a night. How often are the people drunk? Not always, but whoever got into the accident, this guy's drunk. Even if what that individual said is accurate, what does that mean? That this person informed me that person's drunk? Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. I get no time to investigate. I have to take their word and make an arrest right off the bat. Or is that person a sergeant in the New York City Police Department? Is that person trained to know when someone's intoxicated? Who is this person? I don't even know who they are. They're involved, so I can't take their word for it. I have to investigate to see. So taking time to investigate means nothing. Walking up on a car immediately now, how often does somebody fumble to find their registration, their insurance card, and their license? 99.9% of the time. Most people are a mess. Most of their cars are a disaster. Very few people, and I find it to be elderly people, that have all of their records where they're supposed to be. They have it perfect. They have it laid out in their wallet perfectly. They have it laid out in their vehicle perfectly. Very few people don't struggle to give you all their information.
I couldn't find my insurance card right now if you asked me. I couldn't find it.
Exactly. If I get pulled over right now, if Stay Trained Up pulls me over, I'm going to be fumbling like a moron. I don't drink. I'm going to be like, yeah, no, I definitely got insured. If you just run it, no, I think I got this on an app.
Thank God I got the app. Yeah, I don't know what my registration. I don't know nothing.
And I think that's true for a lot of people. So those facts of the case mean absolutely nothing. Now they go on to where the body camera was positioned. So now if your body camera, the DA doesn't like the way your body camera is positioned, you're facing felony tampering charges. I'm sorry, but if I'm writing a press release about why I just indicted 2 cops, I'm going to start off with some criminality almost right away. And all I'm hearing right now is conjecture. It's all I'm hearing. So what do you guys think about the opening of this right here? Just before we go further on this, before we get into the other elements that we were talking about, does any of this sound out of the ordinary? Would you just walk up and arrest this guy?
Yeah, you made a great point there. How many times, again, you get into an accident and the other person says, and they're angry, they're like, oh, officer, he's drunk. I mean, is that enough for me to go slap the cuffs on him? It doesn't work like that. I've had plenty of DWs where I have all the elements, the slurred speech, watery, bloodshot eyes, the slided gait, the disheveled clothes, all of it. And the DA is still asking me, are you sure he was, do you have any other signs that he was intoxicated? Yeah. So it's like what the other guy says he's drunk. The motorist says he's drunk, and that's enough for me to go and slap the cuffs on him. Yeah. And again, like I said, these are young rookies, and one of the problems we have in the job is that cops are not trained enough. Okay. If you had a day or two in the academy of talking about DWIs and you've read the academy guide about DWIs, you are still not qualified to make a DWI cop. I'm sorry, you're not. It takes a while before you get to the point where this stuff becomes automatic. And two rookies who they stepped out of the academy yesterday do not have the necessary training and skill set to just all of a sudden know a guy's DWI and to be able to put all those elements together right then and there. Okay. No, I see that question by Hunter. No, I wasn't, Hunter. Oh, crap. Sorry. No, Hunter, I was not. I still had to bring him to the 7-8 precinct and had Highway come and conduct the test for me. So again, cops aren't trained enough, and it's not enough for motorists to just tell me a guy's intoxicated. You need more than that. You need the elements. Otherwise, you ain't getting nowhere with the DA's office. Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, also, I think a lot of people don't understand this also. So my father, bless you, my father, may he rest his soul, my father was diabetic. I have quite a few friends that are diabetic. And not every person that you pull over that has slurred speech smells of alcohol, right? So I don't know if when they encountered the off-duty cop, if they immediately smelled alcohol, because there's a lot of diabetic emergencies that mimic someone that's intoxicated. And I know personally, because my father was diabetic. I have friends that are diabetic, and I don't think there's enough training with that also, but there are medical emergencies that can mimic someone who's driving under the influence or driving while intoxicated. The slurred speech, some impaired movements can definitely be someone that's diabetic. So you have to make an assessment first. So, but now what the indictment is saying, you should just walk over. Someone said they're drunk and place them in handcuffs. I mean, so you know what, Marlon? What you and I have been saying, let's just get rid of the cops. Let's go right to AI and robotics. Let's forget the whole entire human element. We'll just lock every single person up and give the DA's office, give them more work and let them figure it out. Let them figure it out, because that's what you're saying. There are plenty of people that Joe Irizos, right? Is that what it is? Joe says, "Sir, are you having a medical problem? Seizure?" Yeah, someone could have an epileptic seizure. Someone could be have a diabetic issue. There could be numerous medical emergencies that mimic someone who's driving while intoxicated. You have to make that assessment first, and you can't. Oh, but you could smell it. Look, vodka is odorless, right? So not every form of alcohol has an odor to it. So yeah, beer, that's obvious one, but not everybody drinks beer, right? So, and what if someone had they're not feeling well, they had NyQuil or they had Benadryl. These things are highly induce definitely reactions that you can have while you're driving under the influence. I just think that's absolutely ridiculous. This indictment is already fallen on its face.
Yeah, no, you don't have time to investigate anymore. And if you think about it, right? Any DWI arrest that you're going to make, the first thing you're doing is you're notifying the supervisor. Supervisor is going to verify that arrest first, right? That's what's going to happen first. So they notified the supervisor. The off-duty took off before the supervisor got there. Now, especially when it's related to an off-duty member service, I'm not going to start asking incriminating evidence right away. I'm just not. I'm going to investigate the case first. I'm going to see how we're going to proceed first. Then when he's under arrest, when we're like, okay, we think we have probable cause here, then I'm going to start asking some questions prior to placing him in handcuffs. They hadn't made that decision yet. Why? Because it takes time to investigate these things. It takes time to understand what you have and to understand. But they rang the bell. Let's go further in this indictment. Okay, so here we go. You ready for this? So that he says that they didn't position the body-worn camera properly. Didn't fully capture. Like, I don't even know what that means. I honestly don't know what that means, but whatever. Calgary and McLaughlin then allegedly began communicating almost exclusively through text messages on their personal phones out of view of the body-worn camera. So, just so we're aware, these cops are on video 24/7, even when that body camera's off. So they're trained now to text away from that body camera. Why? Because maybe their girlfriends or their wives sending them a naked photo. Maybe their boyfriend sending them a naked photo. Maybe they're having a private conversation that they don't believe that the NYPD, that Jessica Tisch, some loser creep in internal affairs, or DA Alvin Bragg are entitled to see. Maybe that. So I'm sure when these cops now text off duty and they don't have their body camera on, they're positioning their phone away from their body camera, even when it's not there, because you're at work more than you do your actual real life, right? And when you're an NYPD cop. So there's absolutely nothing wrong. Absolutely nothing wrong with keeping your text messages out of sight of the body camera. As a matter of fact, that's what you should be doing. It's exactly what any normal person would do. There is absolutely no reason for your body camera to pick up the conversation that's happening on your text messages. But apparently, you're not allowed to have a personal sidebar conversation at all. You're not allowed to go back and forth. Right? No. We can't have that. As alleged, at one point, McLaughlin texted Calgary, "I don't know what to do." Calgary responded with, "It's bad, man." McLaughlin then texted, "I'll hold your camera." Calgary then allegedly removed his body camera from his chest, slid it into McLaughlin's hand. McLaughlin held the evidence in his right hand with his right arm extended at chest level so that it would appear Calgary was standing beside him. Calgary then allegedly walked away so his voice would not be captured on video and called a supervising lieutenant before returning and taking back his body-worn camera. Oh my God, I cannot believe it. He wanted to call his supervisor and have a conversation with him, not on body camera. Could you believe the audacity? That's it. Forget all of those people that DA Alvin Bragg let walk away for shooting someone, for having an illegal firearm, for robbing someone, for bashing an old lady in the head, for punching an old lady in the face, for beating up a Jewish kid, for beating up an Asian woman. Forget all those people. Throw these cops in jail right now. This guy he wasn't texting on body camera, and he spoke to his lieutenant off body camera. Oh my God, the criminality here, it's dripping. This is sick, people. This is sick. This means that when you're an NYPD officer, you have no right to privacy. You have no right to not be professional in a moment's notice. You cannot investigate crimes. You cannot talk things out on how to proceed. That's it.
They should have, you know what, when they did the injections for the vaccine mandate, they should have did it on body camera. They should.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But I wish I would have had the conversations with the NYPD doctors on body camera prior to the mandate being put in place and after the mandate put in place. Because if you wanted to see integrity, if you wanted to see balls, that would have been the best time. Or see these NYPD chiefs. Yeah, I'm not taking it, Mo. I ain't taking it.
Well, that's
next thing you know, they either submitted a fake vax card or they walked away like little bitches with a Band-Aid on their arm.
Yeah.
Bitches.
Yeah. You know, one of the problems with this also is that a lot of people reading this are going to assume that cops in New York City are trained to, they're trained to conduct the field sobriety tests, and they don't know how little we are trained here.
Yeah,
but
good point, brother. Good point.
I Hunter brings it up is why I thought of it. Hunter, I don't know what they're doing now. I doubt they're even doing that now because, again, they don't have enough staffing to adequately train, for the basics in the academy, let alone to get into field sobriety tests. But you got this training, I believe, if you were in the task force, or if you were in like citywide traffic task force, or certainly if you went to highway. But I was just a precinct cop, and I didn't get that level. Okay, in fact, we had a senior officer when I was in the 7-7, a guy named Lattimore. So shout out to Lattimore if he's watching this. I think he retired a couple years ago. But I remember when I was a rookie, a couple times I stopped somebody and I'm like, bro, I would tell my partner, bro, I think he's Dewey. I think he's Dewey. And we're so unsure of ourselves, we'd call Lattimore to come over and just double check, because he made a lot of Dewey calls at the time. So, but again, NYPD is very inadequately trained, guys. I look at a lot of videos of cops in other jurisdictions, and I honestly get jealous because you guys get a lot of training. You guys think we're top of the line, but you really are, because you get like a shotgun, you get a rifle, you get field sobriety test, the training, and we don't. And again, I feel like sometimes I felt like I was in like the high school of law enforcement, and you guys are on the professional leagues, But again, it's part of the package of problems we say the NYPD has,
You gotta laugh, man. This chat, I love our friends and listeners. They don't hold back, man. They find every little error we say or mistake. They find it. So WD 6900 says vodka is not odorless. LOL. Okay, let me expand on that. In comparison to other alcohol, vodka is mostly odorless except for ethanol, unless it's a flavored vodka, unless it's ethanol, which you usually only smell in someone's breath in comparison to beer and other things. But yeah, great point. But so with what we're saying, this indictment is absolute shit. Anybody read this indictment should be like, damn, this is your case? This is your huge caper hit? Let's lock these cops away forever. That's what they're telling you. So if you're an NYPD cop out there, you can't be human. Don't text your partner. Don't even have a conversation. Sit there quietly. Now you have to have it. I hope the NYPD comes out with clear direction. Where exactly on the chest is your body camera supposed to be? What angle it's supposed to hit? From now on, we're gonna have sergeants assigned with lasers, and then have a laser level to make sure that your body camera's level on your chest, to make sure it's pointed at a certain angle. We need to do this because that's what's coming next. Oh no, your body camera was at 45 degrees. It was supposed to be at 52. You couldn't even get the right angle. This is ridiculous. And there's no direct, like, when can you take your body camera off? Let me ask you a question. If you start feeling sick, I'm sure it's happened to me. If you're working one day and you got your body camera on and you start feeling sick and you start throwing up, can you take your body camera off? Or are you supposed to be throwing up on camera? Should you be just sitting there throwing up? Or if you're a woman and it's that time of the month and you have to run to the bathroom, you should not be allowed to take your body camera off. This is absolutely ridiculous. This is ridiculous what's happening at this point. You can't be human. You can't have a human conversation. What about a human conversation if you just want to say, okay, tactically, how are we going to handle this? This is not just a regular everyday perpetrator. This is an off-duty cop who might have a gun on him who is about to lose everything. And as John said earlier, so I blacked out plenty of guys. They don't care about getting locked up. It's like playing basketball. It's just another game. They don't care. I'll be out tomorrow. They would laugh. I'll be out tomorrow. I'll make a lawsuit, make some money. But now we have an off-duty cop who can lose their life, their livelihood, their career. They're going to be in the paper. And these two cops have to sit there and figure out, well, if we have to handcuff them, how are we going about this? How are we doing this? I would ask that. I don't know. John, did you handcuff a lot of off-duty cops? Paul, did you? I never did. I don't know. How do I approach an off-duty cop? If anyone tells me I just walk up and slap the cuffs on like anybody else, you're lying. Because I don't know. Even if they did something wrong, and I hold my integrity, it'd be pretty hard to slap cuffs on an off-duty cop. I don't know. That would bother me. That would be in my mind. If it doesn't bother you, I don't know. I got questions.
Dude, I saw IB sergeants crying and throwing up when they had to go lock up cops.
See what I'm saying?
And these guys did it. They were like Korea IB guys. And they were crying and throwing up. You know, so I mean, like, and we're talking about you're on the scene. Forget about if the guy's an off-duty cop. Forget that the guy's an off-duty cop. You're not just walking up and slamming cuffs on people. It doesn't, unless it's like a real clear-cut situation of what happened. You're not gonna walk up to the scene of an accident and just handcuff somebody right away. I've never seen it, dude. I've never, not even down south. I've never seen like the immediate decision. Oh, this guy's this. All right, he's in handcuffs. I've never seen it happen that quick. And again, there's evidence that has to be brought out, right? The field sobriety test we talk about. And Marlon and a lot of people in the chat pointed it out, rightfully so. We don't do that in the NYPD. I never gave someone a field sobriety test. I don't even know how to. I'm not trained to do it.
Same here.
You know, if I arrested someone for DWI and highway wasn't available to come do a field sobriety test, and they never were, by the way, I had to bring them to go get breathalyzer test by highway. They ultimately, and I never dropped a piece of paper until it happened. Because you don't know what that person's going to blow. Are they going to blow over 0.008 or over 0.08 or over, or are they not going to blow at all? You know, so you don't know, like, you don't know what you're charging up until that point. You know, so it's not cut and dry. A DWI in New York City for New York City Police Department is not like what you see on cops. You're not going to see somebody out doing, yeah, touch your finger to the. I don't know what to do there. The only reason I would know what to do, I don't even know what to do, but I know what the public knows from watching shows like Cops, and down south cops be like cops like that. We're not trained in doing that. And like Eric said, an off-duty incident, you're 100% not just slapping cuffs. I was a supervisor. I didn't just slap cuffs on people at off-duty incidents. Come back to the house, but come back to the station house. May remove their firearm and their ID card. Yeah, sometimes not. You know what I mean? Sometimes it was all right. Let me just get your ID card. Meet us back to the station house. Yeah. Or we'll drive you back to the station house. It's not clear cut what's the decisions made, and it's honestly not your decision. It's your supervisor's decision when it comes down to an off-duty member of service, especially when it comes to an off-duty member of service. So all we're hearing here is like we're building this story up. And you got to think, people, he does not prosecute misdemeanors, this guy. He doesn't. Think about the level, how much investigation they had to do to get to this point. Think about how much stretching you're hearing already. Why are you getting my text messages? Why are my personal text messages? Because they're not in view of my body camera? It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. I'm sorry. This is just so. Let's go further. McLaughlin then texted, "What he say?" Talking about what did the lieutenant say? To which Calgary did not respond. Oh my God. Could you imagine what he said?
Conspiracy. Woo!
Could you imagine what he said? He said, "I'm coming."
No, he said, he probably said, "You fucking kidding me? Shit."
Yeah, he's like, "Fuck. All right, I'll be right there." Keep him there. Right? Shortly thereafter, Garcia drove away from the scene without asking or receiving permission to do so. Oh, so it wasn't like the cops were like, "Oh, leave, and we're not going to chase you. We're not going to tell a sergeant anymore." Leaving behind his driver's license. Oh, who did he leave his driver's license behind with? Oh, the police? Oh, it sounds like a huge cover-up here. Huge. So it was such a good cover-up that he left his license, that they didn't give him back his information.
They'll never find him.
It was such a good cover-up that the NYPD went to his house later, locked him up, and he was ultimately prosecuted. But let's continue with the press release. Other than waving their flashlights towards the rear of the vehicle, the defendants allegedly made no attempt to stop the vehicle, nor did they call over the police radio that the individual had fled the scene. Oh my God. They notified their supervisor, and they didn't call out the dogs and get the helicopter out. But they had the individual and where he was driving. They clearly had no idea what to do. They clearly didn't know what to do. They were caught with their pants down, and that's perfectly fine because that happens often. That's not official misconduct. That's called inexperience. A few hours later, at approximately 1:15 a.m., an NYPD duty captain. Now, I don't care how long it took for the duty captain to respond, because not every duty captain is that receptive to having to go do this, right? And when you notify the duty captain, now he has to investigate the whole thing too, because he is not going to take anything that a lieutenant, a sergeant, or two inexperienced cops are telling him. He's going to figure out everything that happened before he goes. So it takes a little while for a duty captain to go out and investigate. It's not like you call a duty captain, they know everything, and they head to the guy's house and lock him up. It's not like that happens. So duty captain went to Garcia's apartment, observed Garcia's vehicle parked illegally in a crosswalk. After speaking with Garcia, the duty captain found him to be intoxicated, unfit for duty. He was arrested and charged. On December 2nd, 2024, Garcia pleaded guilty to driving while ability impaired and was sentenced to a conditional discharge, an impaired driver program, a 90-day license suspension, more than $1,500 in fines and restitution. He subsequently resigned from the NYPD. The case is being prosecuted by Assistant DA Tavish Deatley under the supervision of Assistant DAs Christian Boletto, Deputy Chief of Police Accountability Unit, Nicholas Voris, Chief of the Police of the Accountability Unit, Senior Investigative Analyst David Wiggins, and Senior Rackets Investigator Sergeant Michael Paul Greenwood, lifetime IB guy, are assisting with the case along with members of the NYPD Internal Affairs Bureau Group 12. You know, so just and listen to the charges that they're charged with. Michael Cagori of Long Beach, tampering with public records in the first degree, Class D felony. Falsifying business records in the first degree, Class E felony. Tampering with physical evidence, Class E felony.
Wow.
So those three charges are because they didn't like the way the body camera was positioned. That's how the body camera is keeping you safe, people. Official misconduct is because Alvin Bragg believes that they needed to immediately take the word of the citizen and place the individual in handcuffs and jump in front of a moving vehicle or do a pit maneuver, which they're not trained to do, or violate all of NYPD patrol guide and start to ram the vehicle, right? That's what's happening here. Like he's taking inexperience in making an official misconduct when you had a fucking prostitution ring in one police plaza. You had a fucking racketeering extortion ring coming out of one police plaza, and he did absolutely fucking nothing about it. And now you're locking up these two kids for being inexperienced. Ryan McLaughlin suffer in New York, tampering with physical evidence, Class D felony. Tampering with public records, Class D felony. Tampering with physical evidence, Class E felony. Official misconduct, Class E misdemeanor. This is disgusting. This is the case. This is their case. They texted each other on their personal phones out of way of the view of the body camera, and he didn't like the way the body camera was positioned. You're getting 3 felony charges. That's what's happening. That's Alvin Bragg for you. That's the partner. That's who Tariq Shepard told you was your partner. That's who Jessica Titch told you was her partner. That's who Ed Caban said was her partner. That's who the other idiot that everyone says was great. She just didn't get a chance. Now grifting in the Mets. She told you was her partner. Everybody, Alvin Bragg was everybody's partner. Some fucking partner here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If these cops are guilty of everything that they're saying that they're guilty of, it's an administrative charge. It's not an official misconduct. Certainly not a felony. This is garbage. Garbage.
Yeah. How did it even get this far? You know, I don't understand how it got this far. Well, this is nonsense, Tish, Jessica. Why didn't you guys do something about it? Why is Bragg even? I don't know. I just don't understand it. I mean, you know, subway crime is up like 60%, you know, rapes are up like what, 7% in Manhattan. You tell me Bragg has nothing better to do right now? I don't get it. But yeah, to your comment, I saw a comment in there about just about the DWI, and for those civilians who are watching it, DWI means driving while your inability is impaired, right? And that could include, you know, drugs. But just keep in mind, good luck getting a prosecution out of this. You know, no DA, they're not going to take this anyway. Okay, they're going to defer this guy to some program, but he's not getting prosecuted. Okay, but if this by the way, this username, you sound, if your first name really is Mark, you sound like a 77 Midnight guy, and I think I know who you are. So shout out to you, and shout out to the 77, because this was one of the guys that were there during one of my favorite periods of my short career, and it was a lot of fun times at that point in the 77. But yeah, again, I don't understand why Bragg is going down this road, and you have to wonder whether he's looking for public outrage when this cop is eventually acquitted. Because I can't understand why you would waste resources going after this. Why would this even be a thing, and not you didn't NYPD's the internal discipline didn't investigate, or IB or in investigations or whoever didn't look at this. This does not, in my opinion, does not rise to the level where the DA's office should be prosecuting.
By the way, shout out to my brother. Much love right here, Rob Lukash. This is hysterical, but he's right. Not even Dolan's wife was immediately handcuffed. That's hilarious. Yo, Rob, I love you, brother. That's just hilarious. But you know what's funny? You know what's funny about this? Because when it comes to this case, the DA's, that's hilarious, right? The DA's argued that these two cops did not follow proper probable cause procedures for someone who's DWI. So I would like to know, what are those proper procedures? Because there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. If probable cause is met, where does it say in the NYPD patrol guide, or where does it say in law that you have to handcuff them immediately? I want to know, because there's plenty of times, John, Marlon, I'm sure you had it, plenty of times I've been in situations where I had an encounter, a person of interest, and probable cause was met right away. And because of the tactical disadvantage we were at, or maybe the situation, we didn't place them in handcuffs right away. I knew they were under arrest. The cops I was working with knew they were under arrest, but we didn't place them in handcuffs right away. So I want to know, what are those probable cause procedures? There are plenty of times, I'm sure you guys have been in situations where you had an encounter and you knew that person was under arrest, but you didn't put them in handcuffs right away. You waited some time to maybe the tactical advantage you needed. Maybe you needed more people there. Maybe it was just a sensitive situation and you waited before you put handcuffs. Or maybe you didn't even put handcuffs. I mean, I put handcuffs on most of my perpetrators. Excuse me. But I've had situations. I've had people placed under arrest. I did not put them on handcuffs. They were older, or they were young, or they had some disability. I had someone one time, I locked up someone with one arm. I said, what do I do with this person? I'm serious. They had one arm. They were born with one arm, and they were perp. But what do I do with them? Was I handcuff them to their trouser? No, we sat with them. So I want to know, what are those probable cause procedures? This is ridiculous. This whole thing is a joke. When they say you can indict a ham sandwich, no, you can indict an NYPD cop. That's what you can do.
Scary, bro. It really is scary, dude. Because it's like, I could take anything and make it official misconduct. Then we could run a prostitution ring out of one police plaza. We could steal federal funds and use the overtime for our own personal, like, sexual pleasures, like Caligula. Have all orgies in our offices, make $1 million offices, totally misuse tax funds, go shake down all the New York City businesses, grift on the side, get all of our own contracts on the side with companies that have contracts with New York City. We can make millions of dollars as long as we're NYPD chiefs, as long as we're politically appointed and we're connected to the appointments. If you're an NYPD cop and you're inexperienced and you don't know how to handle a job, and I got news for all of you, it's all of you. You all don't know what the fuck you're doing. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing either. It took me a very long time to figure it out. Like it's like you're guilty of official misconduct. If you text off out of sight of your body camera on a job, you tampered with evidence. If your body camera is not positioned properly, you messed with official business records. These are all felonies, by the way. These are all felonies. This is scary. really scary. And someone brought up here about there was an Asian captain. Oh, right here, Gen Zod 80. He says, didn't the Bronx DA try to go after duty captain for delaying his response that's allegedly stalled in the IDTU testing of a cop? So that was another story, right? Duty captain gets into work, gets notified late, responds to a job of a off-duty MOS. It literally takes him 45 minutes to get there, which is totally reasonable. And he gets there after being notified, and the Bronx DA indicts him. He's ultimately not convicted, but he was facing all of these same charges, these official misconduct.
Good guy, by the way. Good guy,
falsifying business record, all this stuff. Like she went after him for that, and you know, it obviously it didn't go through. But you know, in today's day, like here's the thing, and here's what everyone's saying now: like, do you take a jury trial or do you take a judge trial? And I'll be honest with you, right now, the way I look at these judges is they're just as much activists as these DAs, and I don't trust any of them. And so, you know, people are like, oh, well, juries are pretty bad in New York. It's like, yeah, you know what? But there's a whole lot more on the jury than just me relying on one person who was appointed by some radical who hates cops. So I don't think I'm going to take the judge jury at this point. I think I would take a jury over a judge. And I think, you know, I think that the sergeant who was just found guilty of manslaughter, I think he should have did that as well. I don't think he should have took a judge trial. And I don't think any NYPD cop should be doing that going forward. But hey, I'm sure your unions are going to tell you the exact opposite. I mean, again, not legal advice. I would speak to your attorneys, but just the way I'm looking at things, it doesn't make sense to me to why. Well, you know, I've showed how many activist judges have I showed you that want to know that literally have made these disgusting discriminatory claims against cops that are not backed by evidence. They could care less about the law. Like, why would you put your fate in these people's hands? You know, I don't know, man. And the fact that the unions aren't really as mad as they should be, that courthouse should have been packed. Should have been packed. Should have been. And I know there were cops there, and I know, but there should have been more. There should have been more. Every union should be going crazy about this. Every union, and they're not. They're just going to tell you that Alvin Bragg's that partner. He'll be at your Christmas parties this year. You'll have some CEOs kissing his ass, and Jessica Tisch will kiss his ass at the next press conference. It's a joke, and you know, I'm watching WABC. They're doing paid ads for the SBA. Highlight Sergeant of the Month right after this cop gets indicted. That's your sergeants out there. That's where you want your union dues going. The WABC to hit that cuck Sid Rosenberg doesn't know what the F he's talking about. Yeah, highlighting the Sergeant of the Month. Good friend of mine. Everybody's a good friend. You know, come on, it's a joke. It's an absolute. What a waste of union dues. What a waste of anything. Like, I honestly, they should just. I at this point just cut all the union attorneys because I don't know what they do.
Didn't Sid get honorary sergeant or something like that?
Yeah, he's an honorary sergeant. He's also got a, you know, he's got a bigger arrest record than me though, you know. And he never served a day in the NYPD.
He's got an orange tan too.
It looks like a spray tan.
Yeah. Hunter. Now I should have put the caveat on what I said last go around that we're talking about Brooklyn because I was a Brooklyn cop. All right. Now, maybe Staten Island takes it more seriously. Maybe Queens does. But I can tell you from the time I was in Brooklyn, there's no way you ain't. They're not gonna. You're not getting a prosecution on that. Okay. And the thing is, in the absence of an accident, you're good luck trying to take your guy to the hospital to get a blood drawn. Okay. I mean, first of all, highway isn't going to respond for that. Okay. Right. And the desk sergeant is going to be like, no, we can't afford to take you off patrol for how many hours we're waiting for highway. So good luck with that. You either have something or you don't. And if he didn't blow when highway administered the field sobriety test, you're going to have to avoid that arrest. And that's it. In the absence of, say, an accident or something else, it ain't happening. Okay. Maybe I'm sure though, if you go to, you know, parts of Long Island or further parts up in upstate New York where cops are actually trained to conduct field sobriety tests themselves, then it's different. But it's they don't have a lot of the manpower issues and a lot of the volume of 911 calls that we do in the city, which necessitating you to which necessitates the additional cops on patrol, and the inability of your supervisors to be able to tell you to go bring this guy to the hospital for how many hours. Okay, so I'm just saying.
You know, it's a great conversation, by the way. John, you really made me think, because I never really gave it some thought, but at this point, it's pretty scary, right? If you're an NYPD cop and you're faced with criminal charges, I mean, I always, I was taught, I thought you guys were probably taught the same thing. You got to go to a judge. God forbid you're in that position, go to a judge, not a jury. But, I mean, the tides really have turned. I think, obviously, both are scary at this point, but at least with a jury, right, you might have one person that says, that doesn't agree. It's scary at this point. I mean, as a cop, you have so much bias in the state of the public, and then you have these liberal judges that are just completely against you. So it's a terrible situation to be in. And that's why I listen. I'm fortunate enough to be retired at this point. Anybody who's on the job right now, if you still want to be there, God bless you that you're in this situation. And think about the mental health that the cops are going through right now. That every day it's getting worse and worse. I felt it then, but what are they feeling it now? Every day cops are going to work, and excuse me, it's that monkey on their back, like shit. And even if you're on patrol, if you're not someone who's engaged in intrusive police work, that's not your, even on patrol, you could do intrusive police work and be self-initiated. But if that's not your forte and your complete mission, but if you're on patrol and you're summoned to the wrong job, man, you could be indicted by Alvin Bragg. I mean, we've seen it often. We've seen it many times. We saw it with Juan Perez. It's just getting worse and worse. And the unions have, I get it, John, should pack the courtroom, but we need a better response to just packing courtrooms. That's been the only response. We need a better response where the unions are actually starting to lobby legislation. We need, and this is what I think, if the unions really cared, which I don't think they really do, but if the unions really cared, most of these guys are at a position, they haven't been cops in 20 years. Why don't they run for city council? Get on the city council and then retire. And that would be a way that you could actually help the cops out. Like, do something that you could actually help the cops. But just packing courtrooms, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results. Packing courtrooms does nothing. I almost think the DA's office laughed at the cops that are just packing courtrooms. If you really want to make a message, have the entire police department pack the courtroom and there'll be nobody on the street. But this is just ridiculous. And shout out to Mike Smith. He said the Staten Island had the best DAs. Absolutely. I mean, now it's gotten much worse, but I remember being a cop in the 120 precinct, and I don't even think the DAs were even paying attention when I was drawing up my cases, and they just put it through. But then when I got promoted, I went to Manhattan, and I was like, whoa. So I saw some of the cases that the cops were making arrests. And I'm like, that case didn't get drawn up? Wow. And then I went to the Bronx. Oh, my God. If you get a case drawn up in the Bronx, congratulations. You did a really good job. Good luck. Good luck, man. In the Bronx, they throw away DV cases. Like, she said that guy hit me, and then they don't draw it up. Like, what? What do you mean? You don't even have a self-initiated case. You got an angry spouse who says that guy beat me up, and they still won't draw it up. So, yeah. Wow, this is going on.
Sick, dude. Totally sick. Chief Marino says it here. No matter what they did or said, they got to the right place. I agree. Again, it's a thought crime. You're charging people with a thought crime. The guy was ultimately arrested, convicted. They ultimately notified the supervisor. I mean, they notified the supervisor before the dude took off. You know what I mean? It's like what are we talking about here? And even if they didn't, they did it late. It's inexperience. It's training. It's administrative. 100% not criminal. Crazy 10-7 brings up a point here. He says, I know it's a super chat, so we appreciate you. But we'll just hit it early. Because he says when they see two young white cops, they see Dowd, they see Winters, they see Volpe, etc. When they see Madry, when they see Taylor, when they see Tariq, the geriatric assaulter, they see stakeholder partners. Let's just call it for what it is. So look, it's a little bit more than that, in my opinion. Like, so what Crazy 10-7 saying is he's saying that it's because they're white cops that Bragg's going after him. Well, I think there is some truth behind that statement. We've also seen white cops beat up handcuffed perps. We've seen white cops step on perps' heads when they're knocked out and convulsing on the ground, and Bragg not go after them. And why didn't he go after them? Because they were politically connected. Because they had the chief of department, chief of patrol in their back pocket. They had the mayor in their back pocket because they were political allies. And those were white cops. And they never got indicted. They didn't even get investigated. They didn't even get charged. They didn't even let CCR beat. Nothing happened to them. And they were white. So I agree with you that there is that element there, but that only applies when you're not connected. I put out a post when this originally came out, when the Post originally reported on this, and I said, is there any profession that is held more accountable than being an NYPD cop with no political connections? And you can't take the politics out of it either. So while I agree with you, there is the New York City definitely hates white males. Like, we know this. Like, we've shown this all time and time again. Again, we're spending another $1 billion to push these diversity initiatives to diversify New York City's workforce. That's only 31% white. Why? We're trying to get that number to 0, right? That's true diversity. I mean, I think there's a lot of factors at play with this. And yes, is it because they're white males? Yes. Is it because they have no political connection? That's the truth of it. Because if they had political connections, Alvin Bragg would turn a blind eye in a split second. And he's done it before.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I think the reason why those white cops you speak of, John, were connected to black executives. Okay. And the black men. So without that, they would have been goners. And we're still not sure they aren't going to be goners. In it, when the memory of Adams and Marjorie and their clique is faded, and we're specifically referencing a car stop by the CRT guys where I believe one of their lieutenants, kicks the guy in the head, or he head stomps him, and it was caught on camera. And nothing happened to him. Whereas, if you recall, Officer Joel Edard of the 8-1, he was a good cop, by the way. Okay, and when I was a rookie, this guy would pull up to us rookies on a foot post and ask us if we needed anything, or we needed to go to the bathroom or whatnot. So he's a good dude, and I met him after he was terminated too. He told me, by the way, it's going to take me 3 to 4 years to get over being terminated, So he was a good dude, and the job fired him for that. And whereas this lieutenant is nothing's happened to him because he's connected to Marjorie and Kaz and Eric Adams and that whole clique. So I 100% believe that these officers being young white cops, 100% has a part to play in it. Because they can be offered as sacrificial lambs to the progressives and to their base, and it gets them in a frenzy, and it gets them keeps them motivated into thinking that these progressives in political office have their best interests and are going to, they're going to do what they said they're going to do. In terms of progressive policies.
Yeah, I think it's two parts here. I think it's twofold. I think what's more prevalent is what I often say is there's a 3-tiered system in the NYPD, and it's a 3-tiered system that is prevalent within, and it's a 3-tiered system that actually has to do with oversight. And I think that if you're part of tier 1, and we've seen it, you're pretty much untouchable, right? You're at the upper ranks of the upper echelon of the NYPD. If you're tier 2, that might even be better, right? You have those ties by nepotism and cronyism. We talk about that white lieutenant in CRT that was stomping on someone's head, right? He has the access. He's got the connections. He's part of tier 2. And when you're tier 2 and tier 1, you're untouchable. Obviously, these two cops They had 2 strikes against them. They were tier 3. They were part of general population, and they were white. So this actually addresses 2 classes, right? This actually, those that have complete bias and disdain just for police, this satisfies their taste, but this also satisfies anyone that thinks there's a racial undertone when it comes to policing, right? It's a chance to attack the white cops. So I think it's twofold. I think the most important thing, though, I have to be honest with you, what's the most important thing when it comes to the NYPD is your status, your connections. Cronyism and nepotism by far curtails anything else. And I do believe that the racial undertone is second to that. Could there be a racial undertone to this? Absolutely. If it was two black cops, and I do think if it was 2 black cops and they were part of general population, I think Alvin Bragg still would have went after them. But I think it makes it easier that there's 2 white cops, so they're an easier target. But I do think if there were 2 black cops who were part of general population, I think he would have went after them. But I think that if they have the right connections, that makes a big difference. If you're part of nepotism and cronyism, I do think it's a much more of a stronghold with the NYPD. When it comes to oversight, also, we see CCRBs go away that people have the right connections. We've seen cases where someone could potentially be arrested, but I think when it comes to this, it's both.
WD 6900 says, as a black cop, 1000% these young white cops are being crushed because they are white. I agree with Eric here. I think it could went either way. I hear what you're saying, Marlon. Marlon's saying he doesn't know that they would have went that far. If this is a very politically convenient narrative for Bragg. I tend to agree with Eric here. I mean, I'm not saying that they're looking to do it, but clearly there's clearly like they don't care. Like, they don't care. I mean, look at the sergeant that was just arrested and convicted for manslaughter. I mean, he's not a white guy unless he's white Hispanic, unless we moved him over.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen, look at the cop that was just indicted for, getting in that kid's face. He's black.
But Brooklyn.
Yeah. Oh, you're saying dependent on, but I think, look, I think the politics in New York City remains the same. I don't think that DA Gonzalez is better than Alvin Bragg. I don't. I think Gonzalez is just as woke as Bragg. I think the same for Darcel Clark. I think Katz is a little better. I don't love her 100%. I don't love her 100% of the time. I think that she's a little better. I think that McMahon in Staten Island's a little better, but I don't love him 100%. I think the politics in New York City are the politics in New York City, and some things are politically convenient and they're not. And I think going after cops, regardless of your skin color, for DAs is it's a big fish, and they're willing to pull out all the stops. And when it comes to criminals, we'll just give you art class. Oh, you murdered someone? We'll give you art. Oh, you raped someone? Oh, we'll just give you art. Oh, you punched a Jewish woman in the face? Oh, we'll just give you art. You punched an old lady in the face? We'll just give you art class. I think the political narrative across all 5 boroughs is the same. I think they're all a bunch of woke idiots. I think they suck. I think we need better DAs. I probably, if I had to rank them, I'm going to say that I think Katz is probably one of the better ones. And I don't think it's McMahon. Everyone kisses his ass. Just because he shows up at your barbecues and takes pictures with you, I don't think he's a good DA. I don't.
Yeah. Katz, I'll give her credit for standing up to the mob and doing her job in the case of that EDP in Queens. I'm kind of forgot my train of thought there, but yeah, you're right though. The city, the class of DAs we get is just ridiculous, and the fact that Darcel Clark has been there so long is just absurd, and we know most of the crime in the city is concentrated on the Bronx at this point. The Bronx is like old New York still, and I tell you, the last time I was in the Bronx, I don't go to the Bronx too often. I got no reason to go up there, but last time I was there on the job, we went to a house that was bad, I forgot the exact reason why, but I remember looking around and thinking, Jesus, I stepped into like the 1990s up here again, I'm like, this is like a third world country up here, But yeah, it's just awful, you know, the quality of DAs we get in the city, which is why, again, I'm gonna say we need to separate. If I had it my way, we'd separate the entire boroughs from the city. There'd be 5 boroughs, and they'd all be run competing against each other. You know, if you want New York City, you go to Manhattan. That's New York City. But we don't. You know, we live differently in the outer boroughs, and clearly it's different depending on which borough you're in.
I just want to say I love the chat, man. I love our friends and listeners. They make me laugh, and I love these conversations. WD6900 says, Eric, what is in your cup? No way. That's hilarious. Listen, I'm not saying that there's not a component. That it depends on the situation, right? Like when we look at the case of Daniel Penny, he's not a cop, but there was a huge racial undertone there. Now, I do think that Daniel Penny was charged because he was white. They were able to manipulate that case and create racial undertone. If they could create a case and inject racial undertone, they will. If those 2 cops were involved in a situation that they can inject racial undertone, they would. And someone here also said that white Hispanics are considered white when it comes to this. I do. I often say that Hispanics are like in purgatory. I do think that they're lumped in with white. It depends on the situation. But I do think, and I'm going to stand strong on this if you want to disagree with me, in this particular case, because their general population, they're 2 rookies. If there were 2 black rookies or 2 white rookies, I don't think it made a difference. I think they were still going to be charged. There's no racial undertone to this case. If they could make a racial undertone, they would, and they would persecute them even further. But what I'm saying, though, I do think that when it comes to cronyism and nepotism, that is the hierarchy when it comes to race. Is there a racial undertone in many cases? Yes. Could they make one? Sure. But I do think when it comes to a case like this, is a great opportunity to go after cops. And I just don't see the racial undertone in this case. And that's what I'm trying to say, ultimately. Do I think that white cops are outcasted? Absolutely. I often talk about when it comes, if you're a white alpha male or alpha female, you're probably not getting the job with the NYPD. That does affect you. There are many cases that there's a racial undertone. But when it comes to this particular incident, I'm going to push back. And I don't, does anyone here think, tell me please, is anyone here, if you disagree, that's the beauty of these conversations. If it was 2 black rookies, do you think that they would not be prosecuted or indicted? Do you think in this particular case, do you think it would be different? I don't. Unless they had access to Eric Adams' administration or some type of access, yes. But if they're 2 black cops, rookie cops, that were part of general population, and I'm talking this particular case, I think it would be the same outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like I said, I tend to agree with you. I think it's because they're blue. It has nothing to do. They're unconnected and they're blue. They're politically unconnected and they're blue. And I just think that's what it is. You know, I think this is a disgrace. And that's just what you're up against now, people. So I guess have your body camera in the middle. Hopefully the DA believes that, you know, you're not trying to evade anyone from seeing it. Make sure your text messages are all on your body camera. Like, what's the message here? Like, what's the guidance here? Like, what's the guidance here for officers? That's the guidance. That's what they're telling you. Your body camera has to be perfectly positioned so that they could see everything. That didn't say it had to be positioned in a spot. It just had to be positioned in a spot that they believe they could see everything in, right? And then all your text messages have to be shown. You have to show all your text messages on body camera so Bragg could be a voyeur and see it in his little DAs. And a bunch of little facts that are fighting corruption, fighting police corruption, and turning a blind eye to actual corruption. You know, what's the message here for them? And, you know, and if you take any time to think about anything, more than likely we'll just charge you with official misconduct. And if you're inexperienced, we'll probably charge you with official misconduct as well. And if you talk to each other in code words, you know, we'll just label that as a conspiracy and we'll add that in with the tampering, you know, and the official misconduct. I don't know, man. I think, you know, sad times ahead for the New York City Police Department. Well, we told you that there was only one way the city was going to get corrected, and it's through the voting process, and nobody gives a shit enough. So, I mean, this is what it is, you know, and nobody cares. Like, you know, and it doesn't just start at the mayor. It starts with your city council. It starts with your DAs. It starts with everything, your controller. And, you're just going to keep voting this way and, expect things to continuously get worse. And that's how they're going to fall. It's started with de Blasio. We were here, kept going down with Adams. And now we're with Mondani, and we're continuing to go down. And you keep electing Alvin Bragg. You keep electing Darcel Clark. You keep electing Tiffany Caban. You keep electing all of these maniacs. And, Eric was talking about like the PBA should run people, or they should run for office. They don't even support the cops that run for office. You have retired cops that are like, I'll go to city council, and they're like, yeah, nah, you know what we're gonna do, Mo? The girl that just defunded the police, we're gonna endorse her. It's like, oh, that's good. Yeah, because we're working on something. Benefits. We're gonna get you more money. It's like, well, we're at the point where you don't even need to worry about the money anymore, because soon enough, you're not even going to have a fucking department. Soon enough. And all your fucking pensions are going to go belly up, including mine and everybody else on here. So, and you know who's going to be to blame? Everybody that didn't vote, or everyone that listened to these fucking asshole unions.
Yeah. Again, I really do hope that they speak up. And I had seen a comment in there from somebody from, I think it's the Sergeant Renzelli, who stated that Pat Hendry is doing his best. And I gotta push back on that, because if Hendry was doing his best, he would be on. They'd be on something. They'd be here for one. I said, if I was a union boss, I'd be here once a month telling you what's going on. And I would be here just to let the job know that we're going to get our message through, regardless of their influence over the mainstream media, the New York City mainstream media, and the New York City mainstream newspapers. We're going to get the message across, and we're going to let you know what we're doing. But the union bosses are scared to come on here and tell you what's going on.
They're scared to even let you comment on their social media.
Yeah,
all of the unions have their comments shut off. They're doing a good job. They're fucking cowards.
Yeah.
They're fucking cowards.
Yeah, I actually think the PBA still had
handle troll comments. Like, it's fucking joke.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
To Pat's credit, I think the PBA still has theirs open, but the DEA, I think the DEA, SBA, and LBA has theirs blocked. Losers, especially you, Scott. You loser. You gotta close the chat, because now we're giving you pushback.
But that's what I'm saying, Paul. Like, this definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and get the same results. And what the unions do is they pack courtrooms, and we get the same results. And then I know, because I was a delegate, and John's absolutely right. And I would go to these meetings, and they would say, register as a Democrat because that's the only chance you have of getting a vote in, right? Which I can understand that, fine. But then they would tell you to go for these leftists, crazy leftists, because we don't have any friends in Albany. So we have to try to cozy up to these people to get anything passed. Like, that's not true at all. How about we just fight back? How about we just turn our heads then, just like we do with former Mayor Bill de Blasio, and say, you know what? We're not endorsing anyone then. We're not going to endorse you if you're not going to support the cops. Why do we have to endorse someone who's just completely anti-police? And then after that, we don't get anything out of it. And that was the funny part. Like, we didn't get anything out of this. And when we saw the unions endorse and get behind Kathy Hochul because they thought they were going to get things passed, John and I both did an episode before Marlon started doing the shows, and we showed you that they got nothing out of it. Nothing was passed. Nothing. So what good does it do? So, by the way, I just want to go with this. I just want to say I think we're having a great conversation. Now, I thought about this. I was thinking here real quick. We're doing the rounds. I think the racial undertone that they could have injected. I don't know. The off-duty NYPD that was arrested. I don't know what the race that person was, but if that person was black, then I could see them making this a racial undertone, saying the only reason, say the two white cops actually made the arrest because the person was black, or if they were white, they let them go because they're white. That's the racial undertone I could see them injecting. Obviously, that's not what's happening here. But that's to kind of spin things around. That's what I think something going to. But I think the bottom line is the unions have to change course. They really have to change gears. I get it. Packing courtrooms is good, but we don't need honestly, we don't need unions for that. We should see more of that, right? Guys have to get together in each precinct and say, listen, we got someone that's arrested. That could be us. We have to go there and support them. I don't even think that has to be a union thing. The unions have to do something else. They have to change gears and change course. And the problem there is we often say, and I'll say it again, I think the union members that are high up in the union are just too far removed from actual police work.
Yep.
I mean, think about it. Let's talk about Pat Henry here, for instance. When's the last time Pat Henry actually had to don a uniform? And when he did, what did that uniform look like? I'm sure I would put my money on, I don't know what year he stopped wearing a uniform, but odds are he didn't have a taser on that belt. Odds are he didn't wear a body-worn camera, which he did also get the 2.5% raise for. Odds are he didn't have to hand out business cards, which is now law, not even policy. So that's my argument is how do these union members relate to the cop that's out there now? And the only way to get them to relate, and I know they don't want to hear this, is where they actually make appearances and they start working as cops. And if they're out there making more appearances in uniform, they can feel what the cops are going through and understand it and wear that body camera and hand out business cards and have a better understanding and be less of a politician and more of a cop. I think that would change things immediately.
Yeah, I don't know, people. I don't know. But look, there was a lot of stuff that happened over the weekend. Obviously, I think this was the most important thing that happened to discuss on the Finest Unfiltered, right? A lot of national news that happened, a lot of crazy stuff going on in Mexico. That's why I haven't been to Mexico in years. I don't know why. I don't know why my height is a conversation here, but just so you know, I'm like 5'9", 5'10". I'm not a bodybuilder like other people are saying. I do work out. I could bench press 315 multiple times, but I'm old and fat, and I could still do 20 pull-ups consecutively. So,
all right,
yeah.
21 or 20.
I could probably do a little bit over 20, you know. I could still do that, but I'm old and fat now, and you know, I'm not I'm an extra medium. I'm not super short and I'm not really tall, you know, but you know, I don't know why that's a topic of conversation here.
Oh, it's pretty funny. Maybe they want to know how tall were you when you had hair?
I was a little taller. I was a little taller when I had hair, you know.
Yeah, WD 6900 says, Eric, what do you mean they go to roll calls? You tell me that's not enough? Yeah, you're talking about the unions.
Yeah.
Keep going to roll calls.
Yeah. Oh,
I love the guys. Oh, my delegate said this or said that. I'm like, oh, great. You delegate knows shit.
Yeah, you delegate. Okay, good luck. Wait. All right. Anything else before we run out of here, people? We'll do the super chats.
Coffee and donuts, baby. Let's do it. The chat was live today, man. I appreciate it.
Sergeant Janelli says, John, you wouldn't make the height requirements back in the day. Okay, well, I mean, that's fine.
I wouldn't. I'm 5'10". I wouldn't make it.
Yeah.
6 feet laying down, but you know.
It's true. I also have bad eyesight. I wouldn't have made the eyesight requirements too. You know, I have to wear corrective visions. Marlon's tall as hell. Nobody knows that Marlon's tall as hell, but he
not really. Think so?
What are you like? What are you? 6 foot? 6'1"?
I thought I was 5'11".
Nah,
I don't think so.
I think Marlon, I think that was the one job you didn't do in Intel was actually get your height, because in person, bro, you were taller than me, way tall. I was like, oh man, Marlon's pretty tall.
Yeah. And Marlon's pretty tall,
yeah.
Maybe the shoes. I don't know.
It's the Bitcoin hat.
Yeah. So, all right, peoples. All right, let's hit up the super chats. So Anthony DiMaggio, good friend to the podcast. He actually made a comment earlier that I meant to get to, and we never got to it. And he said they were hesitating because they were worried about the repercussions from people on the job. And it's definitely a true statement. You know what I mean? So he says the blacklisting that would have followed if word got out that these two just slapped cuffs on another MOS without hesitation and threw him in the back of their RMP like he was any other perp. I mean, first of all, you're 100% right, dude. I mean, look, you're worried about that as a cop. I a good friend of mine, not going to say his name, but he was a lieutenant. He was about to be a captain. He was actually supposed to be the XO, the executive officer of my command. We had got word that day. That evening, he drove drunk and crashed into someone's parked cars. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Rookie sergeant gets there, and what's he going to do? You know, there's tons of witnesses on the scenes, pre-body cameras. He does the route. He does the whole off-duty route, and he locks him up. And I was speaking with my friends later on, and they were like, oh, he didn't have to do that. That was bull crap, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yo, what do you want the guy to do? He's a rookie sergeant. He shows up on the scene. The asshole's sitting there, drunk off his fucking face, smashed into a car. There's people screaming all over the street. They're all related to the chief of Staten Island and everybody else at the time. I'm like, what? He had no choice. I'm like, he didn't want to lock him up. He didn't want to lock him up, but like he literally had no choice. He put him in that spot, and the dude he locked up was my friend. And I'm like, what am I supposed? And I'm like, what do you like? What was he supposed to do? But yet he still got a ton of shit for it. And so yeah, you're definitely worried about that as a cop. But ultimately, what you really need to be worried about in those situations is, am I going to risk my career? And now what you see is even your freedom's on the line. Am I going to risk my career and my freedom for this asshole that put me in this bad spot? They did that, bro, not you. You know, and that's one thing. When you're dealing with off-duty situations, don't ever feel bad to do your job. They put you in that spot. If it was the other way around, they do their job, bro. You got to do your job. That's it. You didn't put them in that position. They put you in that position. They put you in a worse position than what the position that they're in. Don't worry about it. Like that only comes with experience and time. But yeah, you're 100% right. There is that thing there. Oh, that guy's a scumbag. But you know what? Screw the noise, bro. You're an NYPD cop, or you're a cop anywhere in this country. You're getting criticized. You're gonna have 8 million different opinions on how you should have handled that situation. Handle the situation so you can put your head on the pillow at night and you can feed your family in the morning. Like, that is it.
Yeah. Sergeant Renzulli,
Renzulli's off the charts today, man.
Yeah. The operative word here is PC, probable cause. Okay, right? Because if you're a rookie untrained and you don't know what you got, then you don't know what you got. Yeah. And again, these are young guys on the job, and what have we said? Cops aren't trained enough. These young guys need veterans in the precincts to call on. Because again, when I was a rookie like them, I wasn't sure if I got a DWI. I picked up the phone and I called Lattimore. I'd be like, hey, bro, can you take a pass over here and help me out here? And these guys aren't in the precincts anymore, so I don't know what these young guys are going to do. Well, we know what they're going to do. They're going to get themselves in trouble like these guys did. And it's not really their fault for not, for being as little trained as they are and for having a little experience as they do. This is the job's problem, and the job, again, unfortunately, isn't helping itself out here.
You know what? I just want to say, like, Anthony DiMaggio, thank you for the coffee donuts, brother. I mentioned this earlier in the episode. Peer pressure, I think, is huge, right? Even though it's policy, and you know damn well that someone's DWI, you gotta lock them up. You still know you're getting shit from your brothers and your sisters. You know you're getting shit. There's gonna be stuff in your locker. You're gonna get abused for a week, even though you did the right thing. It's happening. It's happening. And especially, if you're a veteran cop, you're like, fuck it, whatever, who cares, right? You've already been dragged through the mud. You don't care. Your skin is thick. But you're a brand new rookie. Shit, you don't know what to do at that point. Come on, let's be honest. But let's talk about the real elephant in the room. Why is anybody talking about this? We keep talking about these two cops, but who's really the asshole here? It was the off-duty guy that decided to drive around drunk and put everybody in this situation. So that's the one who's the asshole. So you know what? Here's the message. Don't drive drunk. And if you are, call Scott Monroe. Call Scott Monroe and have that Uber pick you up. Why put everybody else in this situation? And that's the one we're not talking about. It's him. So you know what? Don't drive drunk. Honestly, it's that simple. Please. You put everyone in a bad situation. Not only are you accountable for yourself, but now you're accountable for everyone else. So you put those two cops in a bad position where now they're facing bullshit indicted felony charges. It's absolutely ridiculous, but really that's the one to blame. So Scott, make sure you give out that phone number to everyone so they know who to call for that Uber, so we don't have situations like this. So we're talking about changing gears. Yeah. And Mike Marino sends send them ball gag photos. Yeah, get some ball gag photos. They'll like that. You know, this is ridiculous. By the way, I know this is really off topic, but I think this is pretty funny. There's a girl here, Tamara. Tamara, how you doing? I have no idea who you are. But she says, be yourself and go out there and remove the wigs and the eyelashes and all that stuff. I don't know how we got in that conversation, but I will say this. I have a question for you, Tamara. And it's for all the women. Yeah. I don't get the eyelash thing, please. I don't understand why women walk around with the fake eyelashes. I never looked at a woman like, oh, wow, look at those eyelashes. I just don't get it. I'm not with, it's not my thing. I get the fake butts, the fake boobs, but the whole eyelash thing, I don't get it. You're wasting money. Seriously. No offense, but I don't get it. Anyway, I know it's off topic, but I just thought that was funny.
No, it's not off topic because everyone said, one person said I'm extremely sensitive about my height and my weight. The other one said that I'm 5'6" or 5'7" and you're 5'8", and with boots on. With boots on, they said that. So I just want to put this to bed real quick because this is like I just want to show everybody, like, so Eric, I think got wrong one. Sorry. So I think Eric's got like an inch on me, like about an inch.
Maybe that, yeah.
Right. So, but why isn't anything coming up?
What happened?
Oh, weird. Here we go.
What are you doing?
So look, here's Jocko Willink. Here's Leaf Babin. They're both like 6 feet tall, right? There's me right there. No high heels on. I got Vans on. If anything, I'm shorter on that. So I ain't that short. So I don't know what I'm talking about. And Eric's not short either. So he's not, you know, so I don't know what you people are talking about, you know? Right? I think Jocko's like 6 foot, 6'1". Right?
If that, yeah.
Yeah, and I actually, like, when you see the photo of it, and when you see the, like, and I have another photo, I couldn't find it. I actually am a little bit taller than him and Leaf Babin. So, you know, he's wide. He's got a big head, and, you know, but like.
Detective Nolan 63 says, Eric, would you prefer a woman with no eyelashes? No. She has to have eyelashes, right? Obviously, but I don't get the whole fake ones, you know, where it looks like they put on like crazy glue, and then it's just, I don't know, it's just crazy to me. Like, you know, I don't know, man. Thank God I'm not single, because if you're picking women up and they wake up and have to take those things off, I don't know. I don't know how they get them off. They look like it's like a pound of glue in there. I don't know what that's about. I don't get it.
Listen, do you, like, that's it. If it makes you happy, that's it. You know, like one dude, I like, no, he dyes his beard. It makes him happy. Dye your beard. You know what I mean? If that's what you want to do it. Like, you know what I mean? Some girls wear the fake eyelashes, whatever. You know?
Yeah, these comments here are hilarious. Someone said, when you got
you want to wear boots to get an inch on? Boots
Ernie said, when you got bar mitzvah, how tall were you? No, when I was young, I was short, man. I didn't sprout up to like 16, 17. I was a late bloomer.
Me too. I was really short when I was a kid.
Yeah, I was a little guy.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
you know, somebody they have been asking us for more Finest Unfiltered dating. You know, so they've been asking us for that segment again. So
Finest Unfiltered dating tips. We need Jack Stern.
Yeah.
The kid that doesn't date. Oh, I mean, excuse me. It's like getting dating tips from Jack is like getting.
Yeah, listen, I'm telling you right now,
getting police advice from him. Let me comment on something I've never done. Yeah,
but I'm serious though. To the women out there, like, if you want to invest in boobs and butt, fine. But why do you spend all that money on eyelashes? I never met a man who's like, wow. At least me, I'm not like, oh my god, those are sexy eyelashes. No, nobody cares.
I do. I like them. I could do that. I could do it with the eyelashes. Yeah.
The problem is when the eyelashes are like 3 inches long and they all curl up, you know, and you look like the guy in what is it, Willy Wonka? Oh no, Wizard of Oz. Remember the wizard? I think it was the wizard, the guy with the curly.
Yeah.
That curly like eyebrows. Yeah.
Do the nails have to match the eyelashes? Like the eyelashes are 4 inches, make the nails 4 inches. Oh my god.
So All right, peoples. Yeah, I don't know, man. So let's not even gonna respond to what that because comment was the last one.
What is that? Oh my
Sergeant
God.
Strinoli's. Yeah, close enough.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for the Finest Unfiltered after hours. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's gonna have to the Finest Unfiltered after party.
Yeah.
Uncensored. Yeah.
After hours. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, ladies, get your eyelashes on. You know, God bless. I don't know if it's these crazy glue or gorilla glue. That shit is crazy.
Wednesday we're gonna have Brandon Castro on. He's running for New York State Assembly. He's running against the NYPD lieutenant who's looking to further the former NYPD lieutenant who's looking to further Mondani's agenda. So we're gonna have Brandon Castro on. Following week, we're gonna have another guy who's running for Congress, and then I think we got a couple of NYPD cops lined up too. So we're gonna get back to doing interviews on Wednesdays, and then Friday we'll cover everything that happened this week. Everybody, definitely stay warm. Be careful out there shoveling. I'm getting photos this whole time and videos. Insane out there, absolutely insane, man. So be careful what you guys are doing.
Yeah, definitely. Be careful when you go to your car and when you grab that handle, don't grab it hard because that sometimes they freeze or snap right off. So but be careful out there with that snow. All kidding aside, we had too many tragedies of people that get heart attacks from shoveling, especially like I said, if you're even in your 40s, that's actually the worst time to get a heart attack. So be careful out there. Be safe. Thank you, everyone. Like, share, and subscribe. It's almost 2.5 hours into it. We said it was going to be short, but apparently not. So awesome show. Thank you so much for the engagement. Some good laughs today. You guys actually made me laugh, and that's why we enjoy this. We enjoy the engagement. Really do enjoy the audience, our friends, our listeners. I appreciate the input. So like, share, and subscribe. When you hit that hype button. We're growing here. We're at 121,000 subscribers. So please help us grow because you're a part of that. Let's grow together. Thank you so much, everyone. Finest Unfiltered. Of course, Wednesday, the Executive Perspective. Their show is on fire weekly. Great job. And of course, tomorrow, 10-4 Tavern. Pete Foselli, Tom Joyce doing a hell of a job. Really, who's who cast the characters from people all over the country, law enforcement. Again, like I said, utilize that as a tool. That's a great opportunity to network. If you're looking to go to another state, go to 10-4 Tavern. Watch the people they've had on that show. They leave their contact information. These are great people. You get in touch with them. I'm sure they'd help you out. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, so a little housekeeping. 10-4 Tavern tomorrow will have on Chief Mike Fanning, who I believe he came from NYPD, and he moved on over to a Chief of Police in Pawleys Island. I think that's around Florida, right? But anyway, it sounds like it's going to be a good discussion because they're going to bring up the dynamics between being a big city cop and then moving to a cop in a more beach town or beach area. But it should be a good show, and that's tomorrow again on the 10-4 Tavern at 7:05 p.m. But thank you guys for joining us. Congratulations to the U.S. hockey team. I saw some comments in there from Lily. Again, I didn't really watch it. I love hockey. I'll go watch it live. It's great live, but I can't really watch that on TV. But anyway, they won gold. And next time, guys, let's tell Cash he can wait outside until he can come for the parade, but let him stay outside for the celebration. Okay. But thank you for joining us, guys, and I'll see you on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys can go check out Eric Sanders. He's going to tell you how great a job Alvin Bragg did rescuing the cops and how they should be prosecuted. So, yeah, so take away from. So if you want to hear that, 11:05, you could go hear that bullshit. So, all right, peoples, we're out of here. Finest Unfiltered.
Eyelashes and ball gags.
Yep. What do you call that? The Eric Sanders Network, or is it the Guardians Power Hour? Do we
Sanders and Friends?
Sanders and Friends? Yeah, I like that one. All right. Finest Unfiltered, people. We'll be back at you.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?